Ahoy hoy everybody, and welcome to Talking Simpsons, the podcast that's basted with veto power. I'm your host, the Bermuda Distruster, Bob Mackey, and this is our chronological exploration of The Simpsons. Who is here with me today in the same room?
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and I appeared on the highly unpopular 75-cent piece.
And who do we have on the line, our special guest today?
That's me, Matt Christman. Hey.
And this week's episode is Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington.
I'm sorry, Dad. I couldn't think of a nice way to say America stinks.
This week's episode aired on September 26th, 1991, and as always, Henry will tell us what happened on this mythical day in real-world history.
Oh boy, Bobby. Leonardo DiCaprio joins the cast of Growing Pains. Smells Like Teen Spirit's music video debuts on MTV just as the album Nevermind is hitting store shelves. And the Clarence Thomas hearings are about to reach their end in Washington, D.C. So the 90s are beginning at this point here. And same with The Simpsons starting season 3.
I think Leonardo DiCaprio, at this point, he ushered in the haircut all boys had in the 90s. This is where it started. The mushroom, the classic mushroom bowl cuts.
Mm-hmm. As he goes, so go us all. That's, yeah. Well, and Smells Like Teen Spirit, I think, the Nirvana's growing success will, I guess really peaks at Christmas time with the, who knows how true story, but the common knowledge was everybody bought Michael Jackson album and for their kids, and then their kids returned that album and got Nirvana as a way of saying, no, it's the 90s now, Mom and Dad.
But the Simpsons never got Kurt Cobain on the show.
Yeah, they missed out. I bet he'd have been in Homer Palooza were he alive.
Oh, for
then.
sure.
Yeah, for sure. And yes, the Clarence Thomas hearings officiated by Joseph Robinette Biden, I believe, right? Or he was. Yeah.
Classic SNL sketch that is really all I really remember from the Clarence Thomas hearings, where they're all just talking about their pornography preferences.
Was someone playing Biden in the sketch? Because I want to believe it was Kevin Nealon.
It was Kevin Nealon.
Okay,
right.
Excellent.
Clarence Thomas confirmed, 13-2 or something after this, but it did spark a conversation about sexual harassment in America that had not really been in the forefront at that time, at least. And but yeah, and Clarence Thomas still doing a great work. Yeah.
still keeping it real.
But yeah, so yes, the very early 90s day this episode came out. And as Disney Plus says, this is the first episode of season 3.
Yes, nothing happened before this.
Yep, no episode aired. Certainly not one with Michael Jackson in it.
Your memories are false. Here's Boba Fett. Look at him. He's dancing around in his new show. But joining us today is, of course, Matt Christman of Chapo Trap House. Matt was last with us on, I believe, Bart Gets Hit by a Car. Welcome to the show again, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And sadly, we couldn't have you in person for our postponed SF Sketchfest show, but this episode is such a great political one that that is so in the, I'd say, Chapo wheelhouse that I think it's perfect to have on.
Yes.
Especially
one of our best episodes ever, I think, is called The Deficit Rag. This episode.
Well, I mean, more than anything, your show has taught me, Matt, that all op-ed writers are dog brain psychos, and This, after listening to 6 years of your show or whatever, and then watching this again, it really hammered home just how bad all the writing is and the tropes they're making fun of. Even though the essays are written by children, they're making fun of things they're seeing written by adults, for sure.
Yeah. These are all op-ed staples being used here.
And most of the op-ed writers, I think, probably haven't improved their writing style since their childhoods anyway. So
I mean, what would be the incentive to? Once you're on the conveyor belt, the career conveyor belt, there's no incentive to improving anything. In fact, improving your writing style or the acuity of your analysis would only disrupt the apple cart.
You're on the road to hopefully running the CIA or some sort of position like that on the Harvard cart. So why change it? Yeah. Well, yeah, Matt. I mean, we talk about how much we enjoy your podcast too, but especially this one is so also just about history and the presidency too. And you just did last year an amazing couple of miniseries. I love the Hinge Points one and also the Hell Hell of Presidents with Chris Wade. That was such a great series.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Okay. And yeah, I was just spent a year just thinking about presidents.
And so do you, I mean, watching this episode, I think you can really see the backgrounds of the main major Simpsons producers on the show, especially Al Jean and Mike Reiss and George Meyer, the writer of this episode, all came like literally from the same Harvard class and the same guys who wrote in the Lampoon. A lot of them are Lisa types who, through intelligence and striving and bootstrapism, that they made it to Harvard, and then they end up comedy writers instead of Senate pages or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that happens when certain people get to Harvard and realize what it is. Like, oh yeah, this is just a daycare for elite kids to have them hang around for a while and collect business cards before going off to rule the world.
Mm-hmm. And how can you not get irony poisoned and want to just write about how they all suck in the Harvard Lampoon?
Yeah, like what can I do that is, of course, still culturally valued and leaves me successful. That's not optional, but that does not implicate me in this disgusting, grubby business. And then, hey, doing satire, perfect.
I'm going to write for Alf.
Yeah,
that's what Al Jean and Mike Reiss said. I actually very little of this episode is based on Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. A few key plot points. I did rewatch it, and I remember being kind of bored by it the first time. I think it's still kind of a boring movie. It might be because I just watched It's a Wonderful Life over the holidays, and like George Bailey is the Chad to the virgin Jeff Smith, in my opinion. Like, Jeff is he's a big American nerd. He's way into this boys camp he wants to build. He's kind of a weirdo.
Honestly, sus.
Yeah.
Why do you care so much about these boys going to camp?
Exactly.
What's going on here?
People forget that the reason he is filibustering is because he is dead set on building this private camp for boys. Yes.
I want to be surrounded by boys. No civilization anywhere near.
The police station very far away from here. Yeah.
But I mean, there are some key plot points where it's very subtle in this episode, but Lisa, she's inspired by the forest, and Jeff Smith in the movie is inspired by the wilderness, and in both cases the political machine wants to destroy that dream for both of these characters.
And Matt, do you recall watching this episode like live as a child back in the day?
I don't have a specific memory of this one. No, this is like I watched them all as they were appearing, but this is one where I think my strongest memories are on the syndication rewatch.
I think this episode really works great as I think it's a great episode. Like, it starts pure season 3, as in there's 2 holdovers. Well, Blood Feud isn't. Anyway, look, this is the real first episode they made for the 3rd season. That wasn't a holdover from season 2 that starred Michael Jackson. This is the real one. And I think this is shows how good they got, the big step up from 2 to 3. They're more cynical, they're sharper, the Homer's stupider, the animation's even better. Everything's just firing on all cylinders in this episode.
Yeah, like you said, Henry, this is the first production episode of season 3. I believe Sam Simon is off the show because he's no longer the showrunner. Al Jean and Mike Reiss are, and then Al Jean came back after season 4 to run the show from season 13 to present. So between this episode and Cape Fear, that's what he and Mike Reiss ran before leaving for The Critic. And where did Sam Simon go? Well, he went to ABC to make a sitcom through Gracie Films called Sibs that he and James L. Brooks executive produced, and that was a huge failure. It actually debuted on the same night as Home Improvement.
Ooh.
And both Dan Castellaneta and Alex Rocco were on the show. And it got a huge order up front because I think ABC was like, we're going to get a show from the Simpsons people. This is going to rule. That show aired 7 of 22 episodes that were produced.
Wow.
And then Sam Simon would go on to do things like other sitcoms that failed, like Phenom and The George Carlin Show. But I think getting him out of the room made things a lot easier for the writers because there was not the strife of him versus Matt Groening, which seemed to be a huge problem in the first 2 seasons.
I watched the George Carlin Show.
Oh, me too.
Which also had Alex Rocco on it.
Oh, wow. Sam Simon really liked that Alex Rocco guy. I wonder if he played...
Come on, Mo Green. What's not to like? He was a member... I'm sure you guys know this. He was a member of the Winter Hill Gang. He was one of Whitey Bulger's henchmen.
Well, I did not know that.
I did not know that either.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
he was a Boston mob guy before he was an actor.
I watched Phenom. Phenom, anyone?
No.
It's about a
I did
girl.
not see Phenom. This is the first I'm hearing of Phenom.
It's a girl that plays tennis.
Oh, the girl tennis show, right? That's come up in our research before, but yeah, well, all three of those shows are just like they don't exist. Like they didn't get a DVD release, or maybe I bet the George Carlin show did get a DVD.
I bet it did,
with
but
his name attached to it. But
there's no physical release for Sibs. There's no iTunes page for Sibs.
But Gene and Reese, them getting to showrun, like they really have that same stick-to-itiveness that got them into Harvard. Like Al Jean is I don't want to call him a Ben Shapiro type, but he did get into Harvard at 16. Like that, in that way, he's like that much
Roll
of a
backpack.
But I mean, he was like, oh, I want to write comedy but he's a mega nerd who loves Spider-Man, so I can't be too mad at Al Jean. But
yeah, and I mean, they're both very talented. I think they got this role because they had the most sitcom experience. They had done Alf and It's Gary Shandling Show. Jeff Martin, I think, had the most comedy writing on television experience because he spent about 8 years on Letterman before The Simpsons, but they had, they had been on sitcoms before this and had a lot of experience there.
And they mentioned that they rewrote the hell out of this one, like probably the most rewrites they'd done on a show to that point. And in a peak, just they're like, oh, we got to get it better and better and better. Some slight changes, I'll bring them up, but the great Simpsons history account on Twitter, that guy 3002, had like one of the early drafts from his comparisons of like page for page. The most of them are improvements that are in this episode, so I think it probably helped them a lot. And then on top of that, you got George Meyer, who did not write a ton of episodes, like as in his name is on it, but he's one of the most influential writers in the show. And politically reading him, I view him, I think, as a left libertarian type of guy. Like he is an environmentalist dude who wrote jokes. I remember still that great line John Vitti said about George Meyer. They said if George Meyer wrote an episode that could make one kid distrust the cops, he'd be happy. But also they talk about how in the episodes where they complain about taxes and being taxed and viewing tax as thefts, they're like, that's a real George Meyer line there, they say. So he's a tough guy to read politically, I think. But certainly his cynicism towards government comes through in this episode. I deserved cynicism, I'd say.
It's too bad he's not on this commentary track because I want to hear, I feel like all the political stuff comes from him, especially the Reader's Digest parody, because he wrote a Reader's Digest parody in college. I couldn't find it online, but yeah, that all came from him, and I want to believe like all the political content came from him too. It does feel like something that he would do. And
he said that he was complimented. George Meyer was apparently complimented on this episode by Clinton's Secretary of the Interior, Bruce Babbitt, who thought it was a very funny episode, they had mentioned. Though I don't know much about Bruce Babbitt. Matt, do you know anything about that guy, former Arizona governor?
Was he the Interior Secretary?
That's what Wikipedia told me. Yeah.
I that's all I remember. He's not on the Clinton body count list.
It couldn't be that close of a friend.
One of the lower key members of the Clinton cabal.
He didn't get invited to those
they put
parties.
Him in charge of the trees, of course.
And also, like, you've got Wes Archer directing it, who had briefly between seasons 2 and 3 quit the show, and this was his return to it, and he's like a cool Texas guy. Like, I think that comes through in this, and they worked really hard on all the like realistic locations for Washington DC.
It's the first vacation episode. I mean, Bart went to France, and there was they went to Capital City for an act, but this is really,
and they went to Detroit for his brother, but that Detroit was not Detroit. It didn't look anything like Detroit. This time they're like, no, let's just draw all the real stuff. And when my family visited Washington DC in the summer of 2001, which was pretty for a family trip, what a great time to visit Washington DC. But like when I saw the landmarks, I was like, oh, that's the thing, that's the Spirit of St. Louis that Bart was in. There's this, that. I saw it all through the lens of this episode.
I hope you didn't try to find the Winifred Beecher Howe memorial.
No, I didn't. We did drive by the Jefferson Memorial, and I was like, I wish we could actually visit it, but I'm actually doing what every person in this episode does, which is not visit it. And yeah, also I think this episode spoke to me as a kid and now as an adult, because like I was an essay writing dork in school. Like I loved writing essays. I loved getting a gold star from teacher who said like I had the best essay about Crime and Punishment. You're a smart little boy. And they tap me on the head. Like, yeah. So I agree with Lisa. I could see so much of myself in Lisa's love of doing it. And then also it's souring on her as she sees like everything, the reality of the world.
Yeah, I was an essay weirdo too. I was a 10-year-old buying Dave Barry books.
Oh,
so
wow.
I wonder if anyone was worried about me.
Start this episode with there's a funny chalkboard gag about spitballs being freedom of speech, which then leads into a Homer opening the mail gag, which feels like a sequel to the opening mail section that's in like Blood Feud. You remember Homer's like Bill thing. There's a few runners that start up in this episode, and Homer, this is like a new season 3. You got to recalibrate how stupid Homer is. Like Homer's dumber here than he was last season, starting with like you think that he's actually good at not falling for all these scams, but when he finally sees that $1 million, he's like, oh yeah, I got it, all right, and he just runs off with it. And Bob, you shared with me this great article about how the history of the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes and how lots of people have fallen for scams just like what Homer has done in this episode.
They went through several lawsuits throughout the 90s because they basically just called everyone a finalist, and with a lot of misleading language. So they had to really
I remember that.
recalibrate what they put on the envelope.
I remember the cruel false joy that you felt getting one of those in the mail for just a second.
Yeah, I have vague memories as a kid
real.
thinking like this is a check.
Yes,
we could buy things with this, and my mom said no, it's a scam to buy magazines, and you can play with the stamps in there.
I saw that article. There was like a story of one old man who like twice tried to cash one of those checks and ended up in a lot of trouble because of it.
That's basically the plot of the film Nebraska, if anyone's seen that.
Nice, check that out.
The Alexander Payne movie. Bruce Dern plays a retiree who tries to cash a fake sweepstakes check.
I've been meaning to watch.
It becomes a journey of father-son rediscovery in black and white.
I think that's why I didn't want to. I father-son things get me too much. But
and you don't want to see Will Forte not like dropping his pants.
Yeah. If I can't see his ass, like in that new MacGruber, I saw his ass like for 40% of that the series run, and I was happy for it. But no, I got to check that. Isn't Bob Odenkirk in it too? I think is
yes.
Yeah. Also that prize patrol thing that Homer just runs to the bank. I just love how much he gives up. Like when the guy's like, "No, this is not a check."
Void.
Like, shut up. Like just looking at your shoes and going, "Shut up." Like it's so good.
It just feels like writers looking around the world and thinking of jokes for Homer. Like you drive by an all-you-can-eat restaurant. What if Homer went to one? You get that in the mail. What if Homer thinks this is real? And this is connected in a unintentional way to what happens next, in which apparently Publishers Clearinghouse got this idea because Reader's Digest had very popular sweepstakes, so they got the idea from them in like the late 60s.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's I love Lisa shutting him down with like, I don't think real checks have exclamation points. But yeah, so then comes in Reading Digest, which is a parody of Reader's Digest, which right after we record this, it turns 100 years old. Like its first was printed in the early February 1922, and it somehow is still in publishing today. Yeah, it's as a kid, I knew Reader's Digest is like, well, it seemed boring to me. It didn't have cartoons, which is what draws Homer in this too. I never gave much time to Reader's Digest. Looking up its politics, I can see exactly why George Meyer chose it to make fun of it in this very episode. Like it was, a conservative magazine. It was fiercely pro-American. Like Reagan loved it, pro-Vietnam.
But everything is shrouded in just folksiness.
Yes, yeah, and very like Soviet red baiting, anti-Soviet red baiting stuff too, and that also very pro-American intervention and suspected of being tied to the CIA. The one source I saw noted that like at the very least the versions printed in Latin America were certainly connected to the CIA, if not that. I don't know how much.
There were definitely CIA like contract agents among its editors and writers, and it pushed a very heavy Cold War agenda all through that era. In 1969, at the height of protests against the Vietnam War, they put out an issue of Reader's Digest with a detachable American flag and encouraged everyone to take it out and to display it somewhere to show their love for the country.
I saw that the week this or around when this episode aired, I tried to find like a Reader's Digest for that week. The best one I could find was like 2 months after this one, and it had a story that basically was like, I was almost eaten by sharks. So basically the story Homer tells. And then another one is like, it was a polemic for political decency written by Fred Barnes, the like executive editor of the Weekly Standard, who when I looked him up, I was like, oh right, that guy. It was like this, a Bush era Fox News head. Whatever happened to that guy? Like he's
the Beetle Barnes. It's on the McLaughlin group a lot.
That's right.
Yes. But now Reader's Digest comes out, I think, 10 times a year, which is what the Mad Magazine schedule was before it died. So it can't be long for this world.
I would guess it's just propped up by the CIA at this point. Some old suit keeping it going.
There are lots of ads for Jack Ryan in it, so
of course,
put the pieces together.
And
they probably just forgot. Like the account is on auto pay, so they just keep getting paid even though nobody cares anymore.
And I guess, in pop culture, Reader's Digest is also famous for like the Reader's Digest version, that saying, meaning if you cut down, shorten it, usually for the worse, and remove like, can you give me the Reader's Digest version, like which removes like context and dumbs it down for people. That's generally what it means. And so of course Homer would love this magazine if he read it, and he instantly like just falls in love with it once he's given it as just a free copy.
The Simpsons will be right back.
Bart! Go to bed!
Sure thing, Dad.
It's Bart versus the Space Mutants for your NES.
Rumba!
Only Bart Simpson can save the Earth.
Bart! Okay,
Get the Simpsons game for your NES from Acclaim. Bart!
Welcome to the break, everybody. It's Henry Gilbert, and I don't know if checks have a bunch of exclamation points, but I certainly do. And I say thank you to our guest this week, Matt Christman from Chapo Trap House. It's always a treat to have him on. And, if you are in Louisiana, I believe you can still catch their live show. If it's not already sold out, I don't know. But, of course, you know where to find Chapo Trap House, Hell of Presidents, Hinge Points, all the cool stuff that Matt Christman does. Thank you so much again, Matt, for doing our podcast as always. And if you're a new listener to Talking Simpsons, I would like you to know that this is only possible thanks to listeners who support us at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. This is a fully listener-supported podcast, which is why I ask you guys to check out all of the cool stuff we have at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons to support me and Bob doing this full time. $5 a month gets you access to so many exclusive podcasts, new every month. You get each month a new episode of Talking Futurama, where we just covered I Dated a Robot, the Lucy Liu episode, as well as a new episode of Talking of the Hill, where this month we're covering 3 Days of the Condo. And there's so much else going on in the Patreon. You get a giant back catalog for that $5. All of the previous exclusive miniseries that we've done on there, us covering the entirety of The Critic, Mission Hill, all the previous episodes about Futurama and King of the Hill, and also our top 10 favorite episodes of Batman, the animated series. You got to check it all out at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. But if you want to feel like a real very important person, you should sign up at the $10 level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, because that premium level has all the $5 things I just listed for you, but also our exclusive monthly What a Cartoon movie podcast. Each month, me and Bob not only do the regular What a Cartoon podcast, where we cover an animated series super in depth, just like we do The Simpsons, but we also do the What a Cartoon movie podcast of us covering an animated film super duper in depth, even over 5 hours long. Last month we covered South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut. That was a whole bunch of fun. This month we're covering the Disney Golden Age classic Pinocchio, which was also really, really great. And if you sign up at the $10 level, you'll also get next month our super deep dive into the classic 1988 film Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You are not going to want to miss that. Please check out the entire 3 years plus back catalog of over 220 hours of exclusive What a cartoon movie podcasts in addition to all the other stuff at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Homer's initial reaction to Reader's Digest is brought in by a cartoon in our first clip.
Mr. Simpson, I can assure you, this check of yours is non-negotiable.
Oh, yeah? Well, what makes you so damn sure?
You see where it says void, 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 and this is not a check? Cash value, 1/20th of a cent. Mr. Banker, do not honor...
Shut up. I had a feeling it was too good to be true. Every time you get $1 million, something queers the deal.
I don't think real checks have exclamation points.
Well, at least we got a free sample of Reading Digest.
Marge, I never read a magazine in my life, and I'm not going to start now. Hey, a cartoon. Well, dear, you always wanted a compact. Ain't it the truth?
No, it's not the truth, Homer. It's well documented that women are safer drivers than men.
Oh, Marge, cartoons don't have any deep meaning. They're just stupid drawings that give you a cheap laugh.
His butt crack made me laugh, and as a kid, that cheap laugh worked. But yeah,
and apparently the Lockhorns, which this is a parody of the motoring mishaps, it's still being published.
Still?
Yeah.
The joke was out of date 30 years ago. Oh my God.
God, those Lockhorns. Just imagine them locked in perpetual battle.
Yeah, they're never to be free from it.
Extricate themselves.
Yep. Yeah.
Very depressing to think about.
I mean, that's just a great early statement on Reader's Digest, positions as well, that they're publishing basically a cartoon from the 50s about like those women drivers, and that Marge can just stand up and be like, no, statistically this is wrong. And also just a great episode for a start of an episode that's full of deeper political meaning, to have it start with Homer saying like cartoons don't mean anything, they're just cheap laughs. That's a great gag. Perfect headline parody for Reader's Digest of like, can we trust Bermuda? Like, it's such a great,
just like pointless xenophobia.
Yeah, about a thing that is like, so they have to go to such an extreme of like, well, you'd never write a xenophobic thing about Bermuda. No one would even bother to be scared of that. Like, that's such a great extreme there to go to.
We had just invaded Panama like a year before that, so.
Oh, okay. So
anybody could be anybody, and then Grenada like 5 years before that.
So they're really just running it up the flagpole.
Countries,
yeah.
Any one of them could at any point just become out of nowhere a huge threat to us.
I was just listening to your Great Hinge Points episode on 9/11, and you mentioned how at this time America doesn't have the Soviets anymore. We got this war machine. We're looking for something like this is why not Bermuda over any other of our needed new enemies?
Yeah.
And Lenny invites Homer to grab some donuts. He turns them down. I can find no Google proof that Tolstoy had said this line about give me learning, but I'll admit I've never actually read a Tolstoy novel, so I wouldn't know. But I was more of I read Dostoevsky in school. Give me credit for that at least. I read Crime and Punishment. I did, but yeah, I don't know. Anytime I searched for this quote in Tolstoy, Google was just like, oh, you mean this episode of The Simpsons, right? That makes me think Tolstoy didn't say
I think that was written by Dr. Soybean.
And also Burns looking at him reading, saying that like this job description clearly specifies an illiterate. A new level of stupid for Homer right there. And yes, as Homer watches the kids watching TV, we get another Troy McClure, a rare time where they're watching a bad Troy McClure movie that is not introduced by Troy McClure as giving an example. Like I wonder if after this they're like, it's funnier just to hear him say the names of movies instead of like have them watch Quaker with the Shovel.
Yeah. And by the way, Dolores Montenegro, not a real person. I thought she was until I looked it up for this podcast. I was like, oh, it's a fun, believable bad actor name.
It's so great. I wish if she could have appeared in every Troy thing, like she was always his constant co-star. I wish they'd have kept that going.
She was in Calling All Quakers later this season, so let's look forward to that.
And yes, that Homer instantly is calling the TV the idiot box. Like he's been that. He has never read a book in his life, and now he's turned to calling it the idiot box. And I always just love the animation of him just like tearing apart his shirt pocket as he will not admit that he's wrong, that it can't fit in his pocket. I just love that so much. The Homer then reads them a true life story of survival, which again, the cover story on that 1991 copy of Reader's Digest I found was "In the Jaws of a Shark" was the name of it. So this apparently was one of their stock style of stories Reader's Digest love to do, which I love that Homer is so childish that even them telling him, like, obviously he lives, Homer. He wrote the story.
Marge is at least slightly annoyed at this newfound love in the beginning.
Yes, yeah.
Who is that bookworm, Smithers?
Homer Simpson, sir.
Simpson, eh? How very strange. His job description clearly specifies an illiterate.
We now return to Troy McClure and Dolores Montenegro in Preacher with a Shovel.
But irrigation can save your people, Chief Smiling Bear. Marge, look at them staring at that idiot box. God forbid they would ever read something and improve their minds.
You've certainly taken a shine to that magazine.
It's not just one magazine, Marge. They take hundreds of magazines, filter out the crap, and leave you with something that fits right in your front pocket. Those kids don't know what they're missing.
Hey, what gives, man?
We're all going to sit down as a family and listen to an inspiring story of wilderness survival. Then I heard the sound that all Arctic explorers dread, the pitiless bark of the sea lion. He'll be killed!
Homer, he obviously got out alive if he wrote the article.
Don't be so. Oh, you're right.
Well, it's messing up things in the bedroom for her, too, you know? Homer needs to put down that call me Dr. Soybean thing and get to his work, you know? And this is the first appearance of Homer's half glasses as well in the bedroom scene here. When Marge comes on to him and he says, like, oh, you know, if you want me to put on a costume, like Homer read it. I definitely think the Reader's Digest story he read was suggesting the wife should put on a costume, not the man should. And then Homer completely misread it, suggesting that he would put on a costume for Marge, which Marge just takes
I think that she'd like that. I think we have enough textual evidence that she gets off on that kind of thing.
Yeah, the Mr. Plow jacket.
That's true.
Mr. Plow jacket, yeah.
Yeah, as the Mr. Plow would show us that she does respond well to costumes. So you're right. Yeah, Homer was onto something there. They should be
Thank you, Reader's Digest.
Yeah, it really did save. It gave so much.
I don't think anything this spicy would be in Reader's Digest, though. But I do enjoy the joke.
Well, it definitely seemed to be in the context of marital sex, though.
Yeah.
So it was not about, you know, this unlawful sex under God. It was at least to spice up marital sex. And I just love Marge's like reaction shot of like, thank you, homie, and just like, okay. We go to the dinner table. They're making meatloaf men, which writer Laurel Elizabeth in 2015 for Pace Magazine made them herself, and seems like they turned out okay. But like the point of a meatloaf is it's one big loaf and it's like juicy in the middle. If you're gonna have little meatloaf men, they're all like too crispy. That goes against what I want meatloaf to be. Like I want a big wet meatloaf.
I feel like you're wasting a lot of the loaf unless you're just using like sort of like a muffin tin for them or something. I don't know what's going on there.
When she used like in the Pace Magazine article, she used just a regular like gingerbread size cutter, which I think Marge made him slightly bigger than that. But yeah, I guess
they were like the size of a doll when it was in Bart's hand. So maybe that would work if it was bigger. Though a cookie sized meatloaf guy is not going to be. There's not going to be enough interior. But I mean, meatloaf sucks anyway.
Yeah, it does.
Well, if you're like Homer,
like no meal admits you've given up more than I'm just going to take a wad of meat, put it in the oven.
Yeah, like how can I stretch out the cheapest meat I can buy? How can I adulterate this?
I mean, there's a fact that there's a reason that it's one of the foods where ketchup. Which, hey, I love ketchup, but I understand that it is a low-tier condiment meant for the least sophisticated foods. It's one of the few foods where ketchup is like the preferred addition.
Oh, yeah.
I've even seen it where
it's just a big wad of beef.
I've even seen it where ketchup is like the frosting you glaze it with.
Yeah. Homer loves the dried out end piece of meatloaf, so he probably likes all these like super dry meatloaf men as well. And yeah, I also just love the little Bart hot potatoing it between his hands. hands as he takes a bite. Like, that's a really fun animation too. Like, Wes Archer and his team, they're doing great. Like, Wes Archer, like, he also drew, that's just his handiwork, the cartoon that Homer saw too. I meant to mention that earlier, but and also, like, there's just, man, the little animation bit when Homer says, and it's free. Just
the cut to him below the table almost.
They would never do that. To do one cut, like to completely change a camera setup for one word for emphasis. They'd never do that now. Like the things are so staid and locked down in the show. I don't think that would just seem weird. They'd be like, oh, why'd you do that? Like, we have this one camera setup. Why'd you change it? Like,
it's funny because it highlights how emotionally unstable Homer is, because he goes from being so excited over reading Digest to throwing it in the trash.
Yes.
Over the concept of one contest. I feel like if they were in the living room, this book would be in the fire, but we don't get books being thrown in the fire until later this season.
They haven't got to the fire yet. This is the precursor to the fire. Yes. Yes. Homer gives up on reading Digest in this next clip as he learns about a contest he cannot enter.
This baby never steers you wrong, and it was free.
It certainly has enriched our lives.
Wow, win a trip to Washington, D.C. All expenses paid, VIP tour. Oh, it's for kids.
Wait, Dad. An essay contest. Children under 12, 300 words. Fiercely pro-American. Sounds interesting.
Bart, maybe this is something you'd like to do, too.
Mom, it's a nice thought, but we both know that this is the pony to bet on.
What would Ben Franklin say if he were alive today? He'd say, think of a better opening.
How's it going, honey?
Not very well.
Well, when I used to get stuck like this, I'd go for a bike ride. Do kids go on bike rides anymore?
Yes.
I don't know. I thought maybe bikes weren't cool anymore. Do kids still use that word? Cool?
Yes, Mom.
That's I feel that way like Marge now. I've grown into Marge, just like, do kids still do that? Do kids still play Minecraft? What do kids do now? I don't understand. Yeah, Patriots of Tomorrow essay contest, like, you can also just see the reason for Reader's Digest doing this would be of, like, yeah, we got to get them young. Let's turn these kids into fiercely pro-American rhetoric right now. Like, it's the perfect Reader's Digest. And oh man, the advertisement of it, of the kid like in front of pledging allegiance in front of the flag, like, it's perfect. And Lisa, like, she would of course be drawn to this. Bart just like bounces off it instantly. He's like, no, come on,
let's not waste our time. It's not necessary. It's not like drop down funny, but I like how the cute interaction between Marge and Lisa, because Lisa is just quietly tickled by how out of touch Marge is. She's not annoyed. She's like, oh, Mom, come on.
And nervous and insecure Marge is too. She's like, yes, Mom, come on. Like, yeah. I think of that. The Ben Franklin opening is the start of like parodies of bad opinion columnists. Like, it's just so great. Like, how I feel like you guys must have read something that's like, if Ben Franklin were alive today, he would say or do this.
Or Ronald Reagan.
Yes, yeah. I mean, invoking a dead man to say they'd agree with you, that's opinion column strategy number one, I'd say. They head over to the National Forest, which the level of detail too, again, you wouldn't see this in the design of a Simpsons forest. Like, I guess too, we're still in the purple trees era of Simpsons design, though they're slowly kind of pushing it away. Like,
that's fine. I like the wild colors. I like Faith Crowley's pink hair. We're still in like pink and blue and purple hair. I do like those touches.
And Lisa gets her central metaphor by being in this beautiful, and I mean, the animators like did make it gorgeous. Like, there's literally like Purple Mountain's majesty behind the eagle as it spreads its wings. Yeah, and Lisa, is given for an 8-year-old to use the central metaphor of a growing forest for America's greatness blossoming over time. Like, it's smart for an 8-year-old. I'd say she's pretty creative. I can see why it won. Especially, again, like, fiercely pro-American. And so, yes, as Lisa has her essay ready, they head to their parody of the VFW, which is, that's the Veterans of Foreign Wars. This is Veterans of Popular Wars, which I believe is a gag about how the VFW was pretty unwelcoming to the American veterans of the Vietnam invasion.
Yeah, they would have
they
would have Veterans of Unpopular Wars, I think, with Simpson tied, maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Matt, like, the kid King of the Hill did an episode about that too, of the Vietnam veterans who were, touchy-feely hippie types trying to go to the VFW alongside the World War II and Korean veterans like Cotton Hill as well, and it was just a culture clash.
Beyond that, they just were losers. They lost. That's what's the respect there? You went over there and got your asses kicked.
Actually,
that's how a lot of them saw it.
I think because the shows are somewhat related, there was a darker Beavis and Butthead about that, where there was a VFW cookout and they kind of sparked a battle between the two groups of veterans by causing them to have flashbacks.
Oh, that's good. I forgot that one. This is their, just in title kind of gag about this. But yeah, my grandpa, he loved to go. The VFW was his hangout place, and he didn't even go overseas. Like, he was in the Coast Guard in World War II. But obviously he's more welcome there than a guy who went to Vietnam. So.
You want to stay off the sidewalks anywhere near a VFW because those elderly people are just driving home drunk, and they let them.
Yeah.
Right this way, veteran.
They respect him.
Well, I think all the WW2 veterans are now, they're not driving anymore.
No. Even the Korean War one's probably not. My grandpa's been dead like 20 years now. Yeah, he hasn't been drinking in the VFW in a long time.
I do remember going to the VFW for Friday fish fries when I was a kid.
That's a very Catholic thing.
Yeah.
That's, man.
Yeah, we go to the VFW. They'd had the potato pancake and the applesauce.
Oh, that sounds good.
Piece of perch. Wonderful.
I'm sure it looked great under the VFW lighting of a cafeteria too.
It all sounds very easy to gum down without any teeth.
Yep. That's very important.
I often identify VFW halls with going to see small scale independent pro wrestling at VFW halls. Like obviously a VFW probably isn't going to rent out their hall to like a punk band or something, but pro wrestling is enough of it's this weird middle ground where like super lefty nerds can be into it, but also conservative grandpas, and so it's this meeting ground for all types of people. But yes, as they arrive there, Homer lets Lisa know there's nothing he wouldn't do for this magazine. He doesn't give a shit about Lisa, but yes, in our first essay reading here, I wanted to play it. Nelson, not usually this good at as a populist leader here, but he's really good in this little speech.
Thanks for driving me to the contest, Dad.
Sweetheart, there's nothing I wouldn't do for that magazine.
So burn the flag if you must. But before you do, you better burn a few other things. You better burn your shirt and your pants. Be sure to burn your TV and car. Oh, yes, and don't forget to burn your house, because none of those things could exist without 6 white stripes, 7 red stripes, and a hell of a lot of stars. Thank you very much.
Yeah, damn right.
Homer, I feel like Nelson got second place in this. I think, Homer just screaming like damn right, and that shows you Homer's politics there too. I think Nelson normally later he'd be like, "Hey, got to nuke something," but here he definitely has a political vision. Nelson does,
and he was hitting a very an amazing to think of, but a very hot button topic in the early '90s. Flag burning was a real live political issue. There was talk about the constitutional amendment. There was court cases about local ordinances banning the flag burning. It was a topic of national conversation whether or not it should be legal to burn the flag. That's how few problems were left in 1991.
I remember me and my bros burned some flags in the 90s because we're like, yeah, we're cool. we can do this, man. Yeah. I remember meeting a person who was slightly younger than me in like 2010 who said, oh, and it's crazy. It's illegal to burn a flag. I was like, what? No, it's not. What the fuck are you talking about? But I think the perception is it's illegal just for how some people really frown on it. That's been one of my favorite things in the online trenches these days, when you would see a person say you couldn't make everybody so offended these days, blah blah blah, and it's like, just share a picture of a flag burning to one of the people who says you couldn't make Blazing Saddles today and see how they react. That's the test, I think. But I still think there's people who get really offended by flag burning.
I guess it's hard to tell anymore. Things are so hyper speed, and more importantly, they're so contextual. Like, you get mad about a thing that you just saw. and there's a little like week-long psychodramatic arc that you participate in, and then there's a new one. So I don't even know if there's anything that has like long-term indelible power anymore. If it's not part of the thing you're mad at, I don't even know if you recognize it. Like, it's not even in the visible light spectrum anymore. We'll have to see. Somebody should burn a flag and see what happens.
Go to the villages and burn a flag at the. I mean, yeah, do it in front of one of those boat parades of Trumpers in their boats. Like, burn the flag there, and I'd be interested to see the reaction there. Then we have just a montage of parodies of every essay writing cliche in the book. Like, I love this. Also, I'll just play the clip.
Okay.
Recipe for a free country. Mix 1 cup liberty with 3 teaspoons of justice. Add 1 informed electorate. Baste well with veto power.
My back is spineless. My belly is yellow. I am the American non-voter.
Stir in 2 cups of checks. Sprinkle liberally with balances.
Ding, dong, the sounds of the Liberty Bell. Ding, freedom. Dong, opportunity. Ding, excellent schools. Dong, quality hospitals.
When America was born on that hot July day in 1776, the trees in Springfield Forest were tiny saplings trembling towards the sun. And as they were nourished by Mother Earth, so too did our fledgling nation find strength in the simple ideals of equality and justice. Who would have thought such mighty oaks or such a powerful nation could grow out of something so fragile, so pure? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure when I saw this as a 9-year-old, I thought these are good essays.
Yeah.
But the competition is pretty hot here.
God, I think, for a time I thought the recipe essay was the funniest, but I love the strong invective that the Mobile, Alabama kid has and to describe the American non-voter. Like, that's what makes it, he sees as the height of cowardice to not vote, which that article exists today. Like, that article could be published, I think, today in, at the very least, Politico. I would think, if not New York, if not Washington Post, I would think. Matt, do you have a favorite?
I mean, they would say they talk that way about non-voting, but they wouldn't use those kind of terms anymore. They would just say that you were harming marginalized people by not voting or something like that.
That's true. That would be that would be more of the crux of it, though. This kid, he can say it in the words like it's a hillbilly elegy kind of way of saying it. Just like, nah, you're spineless.
I do like that the two guys they have, him and the Ding Dong guy, are also the two of the archetypes of the squad in a World War II movie.
Yeah,
you got the Bronx guy and you got the hillbilly.
That's true.
All you need is the nerd. I guess that's Lisa.
Yes, yeah.
Well, this blue-haired girl's a nerd too, but
that's true. Yeah, she's from Minnesota.
Oh, yeah, that's true. She's got a classic nerd voice. Yeah, the three of them could be a squad in a World War II movie.
So, I mean, the recipe for America. What a great, one informed electorate paced well with veto power.
I like how just I guess the proportions are so off and just arbitrary. Like 1 cup of liberty, but 3 teaspoons of justice.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we do have more liberty than justice here. I'd agree with that. Yeah. I believe the essay, the recipe essay, is performed by Lona Williams. She's in the credits there, and Reese reacts to her like, "Oh yeah, Lona's in here." Yeah, she was one of the kids. They say Lona Williams was the writer's assistant at the time. She would go on to write and executive produce the film Drop Dead Gorgeous and work on a bunch of other stuff.
Oh wow, that's a classic.
There's a reason too, because so she also plays Trong Van Din later, and yeah, she was Algene and Mike Reese's assistant, and she had been in beauty pageants as a younger woman. So she would play Amber Dempsey in Lisa the Beauty Queen, and she would play the beauty pageant, the last year's Miss American Girl winner, I believe, at the beginning of Streetcar Named Marge,
where she said she was apologizing for what she said at the United Nations. That's right.
Yeah. So she carried this interest in beauty pageants to the movies with Drop Dead Gorgeous,
which I love that fit. That was about as dark as comedy mainstream comedy films got then. Like, characters just get killed in that over and over. Like, there's so much death in it. And on top of that, like, Denise Richards was born to play that role. Like, just like her role in Starship Troopers, for her to be the Queen Bee in Drop Dead Gorgeous. And Kirstie Alley, like, perfectly cast. And oh man, and the woman from West Wing, she's so good in that, as like the drunk mom in that show too. And yeah, anyway, I love Drop Dead Gorgeous. That's a great. I wish they'd called it Dairy Queens. I wish they'd have stuck with that name.
I didn't know that was the original name.
Yeah. I mean, Drop Dead Gorgeous, it works too. But from the original script, Lisa's speech got extended a bit. I think they, more for time than extra details. In the script, it originally just ends with her final speech about like and from those saplings so pure. She scores well. I love that jingoism's one of the categories. That's so great. The judges like it. They think that she must be. It has to be the father writing it. It can't be realistic. This is maybe my favorite line in the episode, though. I mean, it's going to play a real quick clip here.
Mr. Simpson, I'd like to ask you a few questions about your daughter's essay. Lisa, will you excuse us?
Okay.
We the Purple? What the hell was that?
That's so good. Like, yeah, what a terror. He's just like
stage mom for inspiring patriotic essays.
I can see why the kid would have. I mean, honestly, We the Purple, wasn't that pretty much one of Obama's like key speeches, like
right.
Purple America?
Yeah, and I noticed.
That's true. Oh my God, they anticipated Obama's rise to power right there.
Yeah, I mean, they were literally Simpsons writers were classmates with Obama in Harvard. Like, I believe it's Dan Graney who was a classmate with Obama in.
Oh my God, they gave him the idea.
And you know what? I'm noticing we're hearing a ton of Hank Azaria in season 3 onwards, because I think he's more available. He stopped, going out for pilots because, folks, this is the season in which Herman's Head began. And he is a cast member on Herman's Head. So he's in the Fox family. He's not auditioning anymore. He's got a sitcom.
He doesn't have one foot out the door thinking he's like going to be. The tragedy of Hank Azaria's life is that he spent the 90s thinking he's very good friends with Matt Perry, and he dated Helen Hunt. Both of them became like two of the biggest sitcom stars in the 90s, and he thought he was going to be that too. And he was, but not in the way he wanted to be. And like in his WTF interview, he said for a long time it was very hard for him to deal with the fact that his friends and lovers were much more successful than he was in the thing he wanted to do. And Herman's Head surprisingly, Herman's Head not as big as Friends and Mad About You back in the 90s. But yeah, I guess you're right. He's much more available now, Azaria is. So he's just playing like characters left and right. I also that the kid who's being told We the Purple, like he's dressed like Paul Revere. That's also just a great. Like this kid brought the showmanship to it too, but it couldn't win it for him. So the whole speech towards Homer is also added in ADR in this original script. It's just. You can see how it's actually posed in the animation. Lisa is watching from afar, and you're not supposed to hear Lisa. You're just supposed to play it in reaction. But I think they realized it could use dialogue instead, so they put it in later. And I just like that Homer just goes like, "Are you interested in anything?" Ooh.
And it turns into a sobriety test.
Yes,
at the end.
Yeah.
Mr. Simpson, I'd like to ask you a few questions about your daughter's essay. Lisa, will you excuse us?
Okay.
We the Purple? What the hell was that?
Are you a professional writer?
Mm-mm.
Are you interested in politics or government?
Mm.
Are you interested in anything?
Mm.
Could you touch your nose for me?
Mm.
Lisa, after meeting your father, I've decided to award you an additional 5 points.
Congratulations. You and your family are going to Washington.
Woohoo! Who would have guessed reading and writing would pay off?
And I couldn't help. At the time of this recording, you guys on Chapo just did a great episode about a profile on J.D. Vance. And I couldn't help but think of him here as like, once they meet Homer and where Lisa came from, they like her even more. And they're like, okay, you're going straight to the top. Like, we're going to give you a scholarship right to the Ivy Leagues. Like, that Lisa is in a way profiting off of how bad her parents look to the fancy folks.
Yeah, she is she has the J.D. Vance arc for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's how she becomes president.
I get why people would want to envision like, oh, and someday Lisa even becomes president, but I would want her to not be president. I don't know. I feel like it makes me sad to think that Lisa could be president someday, but I suppose it's inspiring to some folks. But when she becomes president in that future, like everything fucking sucks. Like America's just at the end. And the deficit rag is finally caught up with America in that future.
We're humming it walking down the street.
And also just great. I love this shot of Homer saying, "Who would have guessed reading and writing would pay off?" What a great line. But
the second act is basically a part of something I missed just because of how relatively young I am. I'm almost 40, but I wasn't flying on planes until the late 90s, so I missed the era in which you got all these amenities.
Yes, yeah. It's a very different time for plane travel, as Homer can just ask for a million things. If somebody throws a tiny bag of pretzels at me on an airplane now, I feel very lucky. I'm like, yes, I got those. I'm not eating them right now because they'll break my teeth, but I'll eat them when I get home. And also when you could just write a joke about a steward being gay, you just have it's an effeminate man who works on an airline. That's the joke. That's all.
I think. I mean, well, in season 6, we'll learn that Marge is terrified of flying, and we see her for like a few seconds. I choose to believe she's completely zanned out of her mind. They doped her up. She's just staring at Maggie happily. She doesn't know where she is.
Yes, I choose to believe that too. If not medicated, she's having a dissociative episode.
Yes, exactly.
One of those two things. But for continuity Simpsons nerds like myself, yes, you just have to tell yourself that's how Marge can fly on this airplane. And these days, I feel like I have no space for a laptop on an airplane. Like I wouldn't open up my laptop on an airplane at all.
Yeah, I have to say, if you work on a plane, you're sick. And that mostly I'm just jealous of you because I'm too tall of stature to do anything comfortably, even sit. So the idea of just having a laptop in front of me, I can't do it.
No. I guess too, all these jokes here are about the Simpsons have seemingly never had a vacation before, and all of this is just novel and amazing to them. To be on an airplane, to stay in a hotel, like all the stuff of them in a hotel, they're just like just amazed by every single thing. It's about how simple they are. And this is before by 10 years later in the show, the Simpsons have gone to literally every continent and they're so out of touch with their simple past by that point. Bart is also distracted in the cockpit. Another like very pre 9/11 joke of Bart in the cockpit and pressing a button that terrifies everyone.
No. I like how quietly patronizing the pilot is. Like, this is like the handlebar on your tricycle, little boy.
Yeah, it's a tricycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that's another great like the guy doesn't freak out. Yeah, just it's calm and collected like all airline pilots are, just like no. Meanwhile, Homer causes, I would think people were trampled to death from Homer screaming on that plane there.
Yeah, we point out this is their first vacation. I feel like even in season 12, they have to win a contest to go anywhere.
Yes, yeah.
It's always a contest or something like that. There's never, at least at the point that we're doing in the show, there's never enough money just to go to a place, really.
Or when they went to Tokyo, it was only because they had learned from Chuck Garabedian how to squeeze every penny.
Right.
And that was how they saved it.
And they stole it from the Flanders.
That's right. Yeah. Also, that when they went to Detroit, they did a long road trip. Like this is the first time other than Bart flying to France, this is their first time on an airplane in the series.
And I think a lot of this Bart stuff is just really low effort mischief gags, but it's the first time they're letting Bart free into the world, so I'll allow it. Like
sure.
the joke of just hitting the elevator buttons is not like anything inspired, but it's still fun to see Bart do that for the first time.
He's a little bastard.
Yeah.
He didn't have his little bastard traveling kit, which has much more sophisticated gags.
I like you said, Bob, I also wish George Meyer was on the commentary. I love Julie Kavner, she's great, but her on this commentary, she is just like isn't that cute? Oh, look at that. Like
it's so nice to see them travel.
Yes, yeah. And she just says like, that Bart with his pranks, and you just wanna, you kid, like Just again, for such that she has this to say on an episode that is so like political and has deeper meanings to it. She's just like, all she sees are Bart's pranks. It seems like kind of a waste on the microphone. Maybe it was the only day she was available like around. But yeah, and again, another great gag. Homer, I just love Homer saying, "Oh look, he's got the same name we do." Just walks right by the limo. so good. And yes, this is also when they boo the IRS in this cute little clip.
Look, Marge, that guy has the same last name we do. Taxi!
Ooh, look, Homer. The IRS.
Boo! Oh, boo yourself.
I like they gave it to the droopy voice guy to say, "Oh, boo yourself." And yeah, they stay at the Watergate as well. I guess the Watergate's still open, wouldn't it be? I would guess.
Yeah, it's still there.
Can you stay in the room that got burgled?
Yes. I mean, I don't know about that, but I know that it is still open. I think, I know it's also like condos, like people live there. Bob Dole lived there.
Really?
R.I.P. to recently passed.
He barely outlived Norm Macdonald, just barely, but he did it. Yeah.
I think like sometimes they don't disclose what room crimes happen in to the public just because they don't want people going into the rooms and stealing things. Is it well documented like it happened in this specific room?
I mean, yeah, it's where the Democratic National Committee headquarters was, which makes me think it wasn't a room.
It was like a suite
room, but like a suite or something.
Okay,
I don't know the specific one though.
It should be a tour, I think.
Yeah, I got to stay. If I was gonna say, when I go to DC, I'm like, wait, why would I want to go there? I think some of your most unhappiest podcast trips, Matt, have been to Washington DC. Haven't they been?
I mean, I always had a good time.
Okay.
I mean, it's a grim environment, but that can be its own inspiration. No, the biggest bummer to travel to is always the UK. I mean, nothing can beat England. Just an absolute depressing hellhole.
That's sad to me that what DC is so much better than I've never been to England, so that's it sounds like a bad time.
I went for 72 hours and I got a COVID style super flu, so thumbs down for me as well on this podcast.
But yes, as they explore the Watergate, Bart does some prank stuff. It's just all like hotel observations, like there's mints on your pillow, that would suck to fall asleep on. Hey, you get a free shoehorn, and Homer is so simple he's impressed by it. And the first hour, I wish they'd have done it more. The blank goes on, blank goes off, blank goes on, blank.
They didn't need to kill as much time.
Yeah. Oh, as time went on. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The first Bedsies bit, that feels more like the kind of Matt Groening edition of like just realistic childhood behavior of trying to prank your younger sibling on the road, of just make up, I call first Bedsies, and you just make up a thing to have a fight over while on a vacation with a sibling. It's classic kid behavior. Also, that Homer does not recognize Bart's voice when he prank phone calls him too, which is pretty good. And then one of the most brilliant sign gags of the show, I think, when they go to the Reading Digest luncheon, the sign says brevity is ... wit. I love that joke so much. Like to Reader's Digestify the classic Shakespeare quote, brevity is the soul of wit, and just squeeze it down to brevity is wit. Like it's just fucking hilarious to me. I love that. And Faith Crowley, perfect name for the patriotism editor. Like I was sure you guys would have made that up on Chapo at some point, a Faith Crowley type, or just run into a Faith Crowley. It's like right up there with Ainsley Hayes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Alistair's great-granddaughter.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I feel like in the 90s there were so many, like every conservative woman was named Faith in the media. If you were, one of the blonde media ladies, your name was Faith, and to have Crowley, like one of the most famous like Satanists ever, as the last name, like that's so great.
I wasn't even thinking of that, but that's true. Yeah. It's very clever.
This is when they meet up with Faith, and I think she's played perfectly too here.
Lisa, I'm Faith Crowley, patriotism editor of Reading Digest.
Oh, I love your magazine. My favorite section is how to increase your word power. That thing is really, really, really good.
Well, good. Lisa, I'd like you to meet some of the other finalists. This is Trong Van Dien and Maria Dominguez.
Hello.
Maria is the National Spelling Bee champion, and Trong has won both the Westinghouse Talent Search and the NFL Punt, Pass, and Kick competition.
Have either of you ever run into any problems because of your superior ability?
Sure, I guess.
Ah, me too.
These are special VIP badges. They'll get you into places other tourists never see.
Miss, what does the I stand for?
Important.
Ooh, how about the V?
Very.
Oh, and miss, just one more question.
Person.
Ah. What does the I stand for again?
That's a great small role by Maggie Roswell, but she really sells just how quietly annoyed she is with Homer.
Yeah, just to talk to him at all. I just love his like, really, really, really good. Well, good. Yeah. Just like that she gives up like, I'm not talking to you anymore.
And I wish they did more with Lisa's neediness. She finally finds people with something in common with her, and she immediately kind of pushes them away by just grabbing onto them.
Yeah, she's just like, you're gifted. You have gifted kid syndrome too, don't you? Sure, I guess. Oh, thank you. Like, yeah, it's the needy desperation. Again, very realistic for a sad little gifted kid like her.
I have some small, possibly interesting nuggets about these awards that Trong won.
Ooh.
So the Westinghouse Talent Search, it's an annual prize based on scientific scholarship. It is now sponsored by Regeneron.
Oh, of course.
And the NFL punt passing kick competition, the NFL stopped supporting it in 2017, so now it's just like a regional thing. So, and it is for kids. It's for kids of different like age
no more
groups.
Punt, pass, and kick. Goddamn.
The country's really going downhill.
It's going down the tube.
Trump was asleep at the switch.
We don't even care about cultivating our children's punt, passing, and kicking abilities. Meanwhile, in China, I guarantee you that they are out there in the countryside scouring for punt, passing, kick abilities amongst the youth and cultivating it.
You can just see footballs flying over that big wall of theirs every day. They're training.
You know, when you leave it up to the private sector, they're just going to let it lay fallow. You know, eventually the NFL won't need it no more. They're
going to have robots playing football. It's just going to be Cletus from Fox Sports.
That robot looks pretty cool. I'd watch like 22 of those robots smashing against each other.
Yeah, let's just do that. Why not?
They mentioned on the commentary, though, that like the kids who win those punt, pass, and kick competitions are giants, like very physically gifted kids who do not look like Trong as well.
Not a little wiener essay writer.
Yes, yeah. I also like this comes up much more later in his essay, but I also like for Trong, the character they create is the perfect version of the model minority stereotype that so many Asian Americans are like shoved into or forced upon them, especially in conservative spaces like Reader's Digest. Like I think he certainly is used there to be like, see, can't like to guilt other immigrants for not being as great as he is. You know, that's certain. I would assume he was going to beat Lisa anyway, just for what he needed to represent in winning. I would bet, but could not help but identify with Lisa's neediness as a child of just like, but also just other gifted kids are like, I guess, like, sure, like Lisa has much deeper problems than just being a gifted kid out of touch, I think. So yes, they head over to the White House first of all. A cute little joke that everybody's happy outside the White House. No anger there. And so yes, this is a fairly accurate version of the bowling alley that is apparently still is in the basement of the White House. Was installed in '73 by Nixon. A 2-lane bowling alley.
That's still an alleged fact.
Oh yes, yeah. About his back-to-back 300 games. So other than references to this episode, the only other thing I could find about Nixon's bowling history was an Archive 71 New York Times article that was written before the bowling alley was built, but about how like Nixon in 71 had gotten like a 229 and like he's getting better at bowling. Like that's what the New York Times had to say about it. But he
was the one who put the bowling alley in the White House, I believe.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's still there though.
You know,
I think it was removed afterwards. I'm not sure though.
I had looked this up. There were the best I could find where there were articles that were like, oh, what's details? Biden's moving into the White House. What's he got there? And they still listed the bowling alley as present, but I got to think that's like wasted real estate. Like what president since Nixon has ever even used it?
The bowling alley's still there, but yeah, Nixon put it in '69. Dude loved to bowl. I do wonder who bowled among the presidents. I bet that Obama did a couple of ironic bowling nights.
Yeah.
For sure.
This is what poor people do.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Well, and also just for like history's sake, he could be like, let it not be said in my biography, I did not use the bowling alley when I was president.
Yes.
I did.
It was all legacy building.
I would assume Trump never once touched that bowling alley. Like,
No,
not
never. Zero.
Biden? I don't know.
Sports, he golfs only. Biden, come on, he's a mummy. He's not doing anything.
Well, okay, sure.
They don't let him go downstairs on the company. He's not going in the basement.
Yeah, that is in the basement.
I would say Clinton, I don't think was bowling. He was too busy doing perversions. I think George W. Bush might have bowled a couple times.
Might have bet he'd bowl.
But I think that they probably did it like once or twice, and then the novelty wore off, and then they never did it again.
It is, I gotta say, it's gotta be a lot of wasted real estate in the White House. Like, it's just, it's like your pool house or whatever. Like, I guess that's over.
I don't know. It's kind of just like a hallway. It's not really taking up too much space.
I suppose. The Nixon was such a bowler. That's very interesting. Apparently, I looked this up too. Apparently, Truman had built a bowling alley like adjacent to the White House, but not on the White House grounds. It was Nixon who added it to the basement. So
yeah. Nixon also was the president who most enjoyed going on the White House yacht, which doesn't exist anymore. That was sold by Jimmy Carter as a budget-cutting stunt, basically, during the stagflation era. But Nixon loved to watch Patton on the yacht and just get shit-faced.
Man,
I give Nixon credit for that, because he was a guy who he genuinely enjoyed like being president, even though he was miserable the whole time. He did like use the perks. Like, I respect that.
I didn't know about this presidential yacht that we lost out. I wish we could have had yachts for all the presidents in our lifetime.
I just want another drunk president, really.
Yes. Yeah. Again, Biden. We've had like two teetotalers in a row.
Back-to-back teetotalers.
Yeah.
This is depressing. Oh my God! 3 out of 4 of the last presidents have been either dry drunks or teetotalers, and then Obama, who is a moderate, beer with dinner type guy. Depressing. Yeah, we have not had a hammered president since Nixon.
The yacht, I mean, why get rid of it anyway? It's like, it's not like there's still Air Force One, there's still Camp David. Like, it's not like there's still.
It was just a stunt. It's like, look, we're economizing too. It looks bad to have a yacht while everybody's struggling.
Now I'm surprised that Reagan didn't bring back the yacht when he became.
Honestly, yeah, they got rid of the solar panels. They should have brought back the yacht.
Yeah, but yes. Then as they explore it some more, they then run into Barbara Bush, who's bathing, and she must respect the power of the VIP badge.
Yeah, a fun fact about her. So Matt was on the episode we did, Two Bad Neighbors, like 4 years ago. She died in between when that went live on Patreon and the free feed. So that is the last member of the Simpsons, Talking Simpsons body count.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. And then Bush died after since the last time we talked about him on the show too. The HW. Yeah. And of course, this is 4 months before the entire George Bush Simpsons kerfluffle that happened in the news media, which was I've got the clip. I could just play it if you guys want it for history's sake here.
We need a nation closer to the Waltons than the Simpsons.
Huh? Hey, we're just like the Waltons. We're praying for an end to the Depression, too.
So there you go. Yeah, zingaroo. I feel like I was, as a kid, that was all I heard the Bush administration made fun of. Whenever they would try to comment on pop culture, they would just look like weird, funny. It was this and Murphy Brown. Both of them just did not do them any favors, as far as I could tell, as a kid paying attention to politics. Very lightly.
Well, Barbara Bush visited my grade school in 1992 in the run-up to the 92 election, because I lived in Youngstown, Ohio, which is just a crater in the ground that's been abandoned by all industry since like 1972, and they've been promising like every 4 years politicians pretend to care about a lot of things, but they really pretend to care about that city in particular because it's just such a giant metaphor for just deindustrialization and everything. But yeah, she showed up, and all the kids in my class talked about how she was on The Simpsons, and that was it. That's all we took out of it. Like, oh yeah, well, it was funny when she was on The Simpsons, right? But yeah, that was my one brush with a Bush, was when I was 10.
Wow. Now my dad was your typical Republican dad, but he loved the Bush family in particular, which is still so strange to me. Like, why one would like the Bushes over, like, I don't know. I've tried to never talk about politics with him, so I don't even know if it seemed to me at a time he didn't even like Trump because because he was like, he didn't like that he clowned on the Bush family so much. But my dad is the rare like Bush loving regular guy in Republican voterdom. It's strange.
Is he the guy who would vote for the Biden-Cheney ticket that Tom Friedman's imagining?
I still don't think he would. No, I think he'd just sit out. I think that even then he'd still. I mean, I don't even think he loved Cheney all that much, and certainly not a woman. And he wouldn't.
That'd be a deal breaker.
Yes, yeah, there's that aspect as well. Like most people, I mean, yeah, that Friedman article again, an amazing article. That you come for the headline and you stay for the praising of Israel's government. It's a beautiful article you guys talked about. But yes, the bathtub she mentions was added in 1894, which would mean it predates the only famous presidential bathtub, the Taft one, which would have been in the start of the century, not 1894. I think like 1909 or something.
Yeah, the one he got. Yeah.
It's the one Taft fact we all know. Although, I don't know, was Trump Taft-sized? I think people are just larger now.
I actually, when he became president, I don't remember who did it, but somebody did a fascinating Twitter thread breaking down Taft versus Trump to argue that while Taft might have weighed more than Trump, contextually, Trump was still fatter than Taft. And it was convincing to me.
Yeah, Trump occupies more girth units, I think, than Taft.
Yeah.
And what Taft is like, for him historically, that he just goes down as the fat president. It's like, was he the only president who he was in the Supreme Court, right? Like after being president.
Yes, yeah.
It's like
his real dream job. He finally got it after his ignominious stay in the White House.
No president does that. Nobody. He was the only one, right?
He's the only one. Yeah.
That's. But again, that was one of those things where I learned it in like 15 years ago. I thought like, why do we only know this guy is the fat president when he's much more historically interesting than just like the fat guy with a
bun. As people like to point out, he busted more trusts than Teddy Roosevelt in shorter time in office.
That's true. Yeah, that I guess he didn't have the charisma of Roosevelt, I suppose. Like Teddy got all the
that was it. It was just the progressive movement shorn of the charismatic mascot.
Are you telling me that this is all a popularity contest? They then head to the Mint where Homer drools on a Bronson voice guy, and I like that the guide gives them a very corny dad joke about not giving out samples, and Homer is legitimately insulted, like lousy cheap country.
Yeah, I do enjoy the tour guide's like self-satisfied. He like laughs before he tells the joke.
Yeah,
just because he's so used to telling this.
That's the guys who become docents are the people who love telling jokes like that. Yeah. They head over to the National Air and Space Museum, which, again, when I visited that with the family, I was like, all right, where's that Spirit of St. Louis where Bart sat in? Like, that was... Okay, so when we went there, I was almost 19, and I was much more into any reference to The Simpsons there, or also they had a Star Wars exhibit there of like a collection of Star Wars memorabilia.
Archie Bunker's chair was hanging out there too.
I did that as well. Yeah. Yes, yeah. That meant so much more. I mean, look, did I stop and look at one of the Bill of Rights? Like, yeah, I did, just to say I did it, but I didn't really care. Same with just looking in the reflecting pool. I was like, there, I did it. Let's look at Boba Fett's original armor, guys. It's right here.
It's a nice little joke that Bart knows a little about history, that he thinks that's a warplane, the Spirit of St. Louis.
Yes, that is great. That's a great joke. And also the like, how do you even get up there? That's the question. Same in Mr. Plow, they'll do the sequel joke of this is him in Bonnie and Clyde's car, and of course he'll drive Hitler's car in the Carney's episode with Ernest in it. But so here's another big cut from the script. They cut a scene in between this part and then going to the Washington Monument. They went to the Smithsonian. They actually did write a Smithsonian scene, and in it, Maggie sleeps inside of a Love American style bed, and Homer gets misty-eyed looking at Archie Bunker's chair. So this was the joke they reused in season 10's Make Room for Lisa.
Okay.
In that one, Homer destroys the Bill of Rights while sitting in Archie Bunker's chair. But yeah, they then we go to the Washington Monument, where I like it that Marge is the one who makes the joke that everyone does, that the Washington Monument is not unlike an erect penis. which is just hard not to think about when you're there.
It's great when Marge gets to be fun.
Yeah, that it didn't occur to Homer.
Marge, grow up.
I love Marge's little sneaky whisper, like she's kind of entertained, like, hey, we can't hear what she's saying, but she's like, hey, doesn't that look like a dick? Like, just imagine Marge saying that is great. Then we head into a congressman's office. So when this episode came out, logging industry professionals took issue with this and snagged a few headlines, being mad at Matt Groening, like some industry guys like, he doesn't care about all the hard-working loggers out there, attacking loggers. And then Groening, did some interviews saying like, no, screw this. Like, you guys are awful. Like, clear cutting's terrible. Like, I don't care that I offended you guys, which that was nice to see. As always, whenever one of these things happens, like, that industry group of lobbyists would be doing their jobs poorly if they didn't try to get headlines off of The Simpsons talking about logging. And you know what? George Meyer as well, he didn't write that episode, but they credit him a lot in the one where Lisa stays in the tree to prevent logging. Like, I do think conservation of that type is really important to George Meyer. I think that's why, out of all the things that push Lisa over the edge, it's destroying a forest that would do it, and the destruction of national parks, which Obama's in the news with that lately, isn't he? With destroying some parks to make.
Yeah, he's just annihilating a park in Chicago for his interactive presidential experience.
Jeez, that's good. Good times. Good times. It's not like it could go anywhere else in Chicago. Nah, it has to go right there. But yeah, this Bob Arnold guy, he's a great design. What a perfect example of like a young congressman who's kind of like wormy and taking money and ready to move up. But I gotta say, the money they're giving him, it feels misspent on a representative, doesn't it? Like that's like senator money. Like what can a representative really do?
An individual one, yeah, they'd have to be on a pretty key committee to be able to single-handedly get something through like that. But maybe he is. Maybe Bob Arnold is a senior wheeler dealer. Who knows?
Yeah, and Mr. Smith, he's chosen to be a senator, and he's chosen because he's a rube, and they expect him to not do anything.
No, I mean, well, what's the classic line? Like representative to senator is like chicken shit and chicken salad. Like that's the comparison. But Bob Arnold, he's a great design of just this like evil congressman guy. And Lisa meeting him is another of my favorite lines in the episode in this next clip.
Well, Jerry, you're a whale of a lobbyist, and I'd like to give you a logging permit. I would, but this isn't like burying toxic waste. People are going to notice those trees are gone.
Congressman, this is where it gets awkward. I never quite know how to put this. I just want to...
Offer me a bribe? What is it?
It's that little girl from Springfield who wrote the essay. Could be a good photo op.
Sure, fine.
So, where do we...
Not here. I've got a little place that I use for these matters. Call me tonight. Well, hi there. You must be Lisa Simpson.
Hello, sir.
Lisa, you're a doer. And who knows, maybe someday you'll be a congressman or a senator. We have quite a few women senators, you know.
Only 2, I checked.
You're a sharp one. Well, how about a few pictures? Touch shot always plays in the sticks. Oh, isn't that nice? Now, there is a politician who cares.
If I ever vote, it'll be for him.
This happened in the Burns Governor episode as well, that the unwashed masses who are easily tricked by this were represented by Barney and Moe. Like, they had the same reaction when Burns was talking about, gave his excuse for the three-eyed fish. They say, like, I wish the government would get off his back. Yeah, like that. Instantly they just fall for it, like every time. It's great casting for it to be Barney and Moe tricked by this.
And now there are many more women senators, and one of them is the villain of our day.
Oh yes, yeah. Matt, I certainly had to look this up and did not know. Do you, off the top of your head, know the either of the 2 female senators in the fall of 1991?
Oh, damn. No, I did not.
It was
maybe Kay Bailey Hutchinson was one of them.
That I think that's in the next in the 92 group. So the two were Nancy Landon Kasbaum from Kansas.
Oh yes, Kasbaum.
And Barbara Mikulski of Maryland. Those were the two female senators at the time. and of course the next year in 92 was the influx of it made a lot of papers. 4 women were elected as senator. Patty Murray of Washington, Carol Moseley Braun of Illinois, and Barbara Boxer, and Dianne Feinstein.
Sharp as a tack.
Yep, yeah. She's oh my God, man. She's still at it. And she was old then. She was kind of old then in 92. But yeah, to think Barbara Boxer retiring in early 70s, that seems crazy now. Why'd you bother? Same with when Harry Reid died recently, I thought wait, why did he retire? He was only 77. He should have died in office like everybody else does now. But I like this moment of Lisa showing she's been given just a line by this guy of oh, you know what? You'll end up a female senator. We have so many women senators. And Lisa's no, you don't. There's 2 out of 100. There's nothing. And the guy is deflated you're pretty sharp. Oh, my lie didn't work on you. That's a great little moment for Lisa. But also this bribery scene is so it's such a great little sketch moment of it's an awkward trying to ask someone on a date moment, except it's boy, this is awkward. How do I give you money?
The illustrations of his before and after are great, where before the trees are a menace, they're crushing deer, and there's just all these monsters hiding in them. And then it's behind me as my background. They're just, the animals are having a tea party. They're dancing around the stumps. You can see the rainbow in the background.
It's beautiful. That's not even parody, that's just how that's the main job of lobbyist, is to just draw this current thing, it actually is bad. This seems good, but it's actually bad. And if we cleared out this land or, put this pipeline here, everything's better. Everybody would love this pipeline. But yes, it took me again looking at the closed captions, that line, "Tot shot always plays in the sticks." I always misheard it. It means a picture with a little kid, a T-O-T, tot.
Tot shot.
I never heard the term tot shot before.
Have you heard that? You heard the term tot?
Yes, I've heard of it. Yeah, though it's not it was not a. I would rarely hear somebody call if I heard somebody use the term tot to refer to a kid, I would think they were being very arched, or they're they used every other synonym for kid they could use. Nobody would use. Yes, toys for tots, all the usage of the word tots. But yeah, I've never.
They're the children of potatoes, right?
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, it's the next day. Lisa can't sleep. She asked the Marge and Homer to go with her. They instead tell her no. Walk by yourself, 8-year-old, through the streets of Washington, D.C. Oh, God.
Good luck.
That's how different things were then. But yes, then there's a historical figure who, for the longest time, I would have thought, oh, that must be a real person, right?
I'm sure I did. And it's such, I want to say this has to be George Meyer, because I love how she's behind something that's probably very important but sounds boring, the Floormont Rebellion. And then her legacy was on a very unpopular coin like Susan B. Anthony.
Yes, yeah,
the 75-cent piece.
Winifred Beecher Howe is, she sounds like a real person, and it definitely fits with a piece of George Meyer's last episode he wrote was Bart versus Thanksgiving, and Lisa's centerpiece is a tribute to lesser-known feminist heroes, and so this is a continuation of that. I've seen it's likely the name is a combination of Harriet Beecher Stowe, the writer of Uncle Tom's Cabin, and Julia Ward Howe, the writer of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, both of which were, abolitionist, suffragette, a lot of, they were activists around the same time that the Winifred Beecher Howe character would exist too. And of course, the 75-cent piece is a reference to the very unpopular Susan B. Anthony dollar coins from 79 to 81. As a kid, if I briefly had a time of coin collecting, and I do get it, it feels like a quarter. It feels like a quarter in your pocket. It was just a poor design. Nothing against Susan Susan B. Anthony, but it's like, it's, if you're feeling around in your pocket and you can't tell if it's a quarter or a dollar, it's a poor coin.
Well, now no one takes cash anymore, so it doesn't matter.
No, I mean, I'd heard for years that the government wanted to switch over to coins for the dollar bills.
The dollar bill, most countries don't have dollar bills, like the lowest unit bill, because they wear out too quickly. It's not worth it. They generally have everything below like a 5, euro or whatever, in coins, because they're more durable. And they've done things like I remember there was a huge push for the George Washington dollar coin. They had commercials where George Washington, his head, the animated head on the dollar bill, driving around on a bike, voiced by Michael Keaton.
Right.
The problem is they kept the dollar bills in circulation. You have to take them out to make it work. You have to actually stop making the dollar bills in order to get people to switch. But I guess they thought people would get too annoyed by that. And so it never happened. So that they just were trying to do like Cass Sunstein nudge shit to get people to switch, and they never did.
First try with Susan B. Anthony, and then there were the Sacagawea ones too, and I think it helped. People didn't. There were folks who didn't want to switch over to coins regardless, and I think it probably helped them that they could be just also complaining oh, we're getting forced to learn about these historical women. Who cares? But even like you said, even when they stick George Washington's face on it, they're like, here, we gave you the old white man you wanted, the greatest founding father ever. Here he is. Aren't you going to use it now? Even then, they wouldn't use it. I wish dollar coins were. When I've been in other countries,
if you want to understand America's just fundamental dysfunction as a government, the fact that we still have dollar bills and pennies is really all you need to know.
And now
those are two things that most other countries that are similar capitalist political economies have gotten rid of, and we've not managed to do either one of them.
And speaking of dysfunction, at least twice during the pandemic, I've tried to get quarters, and they're just like, sorry, bank's out of money.
Yep. Yeah. I just even 2 months ago, I was like, so quarters, right? They're like, no. I was like, wow, really? We're still in this quarter shortage, huh? It makes me feel good about our country's future. Yes, but so Lisa goes to this. I guess too, it's a great joke. They're like, no way in Washington D.C. would they use up that much space for a memorial to Winifred, to Susan B. Anthony or any woman.
There'd be a plaque.
Yes, like a bench maybe. And that Floor Mop Rebellion sounds really that's a great fictional, I would guess, workers' rights thing to make up too, to call it the Floor Mop one, meaning that it would seemingly be a bunch of domestic workers who wanted fairer labor laws and went on strike. That's a great, and I just love her with her holding the mop up stridently. It's a great design on her too. But this is when Lisa finds out that in a great bit of writing, her wanting to go to an unpopular place is why it is the perfect place for graft to be done in the open, because literally no one would ever go there or care about this person in American history. And so it's where they can just exchange the classic, Halliburton full of money. Groening makes this point on the commentary, but I do think evil people just laugh like this excitedly over all of these kinds of transactions. But yes, Bob, me and you were talking about this beforehand. We had to do some research because it feels like 800 Twitter things ago.
What year did this happen?
It was only 2 years ago.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
So Matt, I'm not sure if you remember. Do you remember when Lisa crying and tearing up the essay was part of the bigger political conversation on Twitter?
What?
Exactly.
I don't
Yeah.
remember this at all.
Well, so take your mind back to Trump's State of the Union address in early 2020.
Oh, Nancy Pelosi ripping up the copy. Yes,
Pelosi rips up the copy. Yeah, she rips up the copy behind him. Within a day, Mike Pompeo then tweets out a picture of Lisa crying, tearing it up to mock Pelosi. Which again,
that's been a thing recently, last couple of years, because Ted Cruz said the thing about how the Democrats are the Lisa Simpson party.
And
the Republicans are the Bart and Homer and Marge party.
Which they're not the Marge party. I disagree with that. And Bart's more of an anarchist. But I mean, And then on top of that, like there were more than a few. I believe because Marge did a clapback with Marge saying it, but somebody compared Kamala Harris's voice to Marge Simpson.
Was it her voice or just her affect?
I guess maybe her affect.
Because Marge is more eloquent than Kamala Harris, at least at this point in history.
As well, yes. Yeah. But I feel, again, I don't really like, obviously we all have the correct political leanings and views on The Simpsons, but it just brings me down when Republicans try to like use Simpsons tweets as, I mean, Ted Cruz, like his one way of trying to look human in the 2015 and 16 was like, oh, I can do an impression of Ned Flanders. I actually love The Simpsons. I was like, fuck off.
I believe he had like a reel, like, here's, I'm Mr. Burns. Excellent. I'm Homer. Doe. Yep. It was real bad.
Yep, bad times. Bad times. This was pre-beard, so you even had to look at like an uglier version of it too. Yeah. This scene was a big, again, even though it was just 2 years ago, because it happened right before the pandemic and during the heat of the primary season, I had completely forgotten the context of it. I thought it was Ted Cruz comparing Liz Warren to Lisa, but it was like, no, it was Pompeo talking about Pelosi. Not that Liz Warren didn't get called Lisa Simpson a lot as well. Like, also, she, I think, welcomed the Lisa comparisons herself, too.
I think until it was brought up that there's an episode in which Lisa pretends to be Native American to get into a college or get into a school or something, and then they kind of pulled that back a little.
Just like when Liz Warren had to pull back, or like she proclaimed herself a fan of Game of Thrones right during the horrible last season, where she had to be like, oh, you know what? I'm not Daenerys. I'm not. I take that back. Don't compare me to Daenerys. Boy, that 2020 primary, what a good time that was. But anyway, so yes, Lisa tears up her thing, leaves the line, the roots of democracy there, which as a final vision of the act, that's great. Like Lisa learns that like graft and bribery and lies and backroom dealing, that's the roots of democracy. Like that's what she's learning in this moment and in this wake-up call as she tears up her essay. And as she'll say, like, how can I read my essay now? I don't believe my own words, as we start the third act. And yes, this is when they visit the Lincoln Monument, which is, I would say, the most direct reference to the Mr. Smith Goes to Washington in the episode.
Yeah, but nobody treats him like a genie in the movie. No one is talking to him. Actually, Jimmy Stewart, I think he visits the Jefferson Memorial first. There's like a kind of boring montage of this wide-eyed country boy like visiting all these landmarks, and I think he goes to the Jefferson one first before landing at the Lincoln one as the last stop on his journey.
That people go to him to ask like, oh, what should I buy a car? Like, my son won't brush properly. That's all great. The guy who says he's thinking about having a mustache, that's Mr. Roman, Burns' would-be ghostwriter in Blood Feud. So they just reused that. But and then of course the gag of going to the empty Thomas Jefferson. I mean, I'll just play the clip.
Mr. Lincoln?
Mr. Lincoln, I need your advice. What can I do to make this a better country?
Is this a good time to buy a house?
I can't get my boy to brush proper.
But I look good with a mustache.
So I tried to use a turpentine, but that just made it worse.
Mr. Lincoln, my name is Lisa Simpson, and I have a problem. Mr. Jefferson, my name is Lisa Simpson, and I have a problem.
I know your problem. The Lincoln Memorial was too crowded.
Sorry, sir, it's just...
No one ever comes to see me. I don't blame them. I never did anything important. Just the Declaration of Independence, the Louisiana Purchase, the dumbwaiter.
Maybe I should be going. I caught you at a bad time.
Wait! Please don't go. I get so lonely.
I love his I get so lonely. Now Matt is a person who's a real expert on presidential history and how the America views them. What do you think of this like Lincoln versus Jefferson argument here that everybody thinks about Lincoln and nobody thinks about Jefferson idea?
Jefferson is I would say his presidential legacy is largely sort of obscured. You don't hear about it too much. He's remembered mostly as an idea guy and as a writer, as the guy who did the Declaration of Independence. And frankly, I think that makes sense because his whole deal, his whole vision for America was pretty undermined by his own actions in office, like the Louisiana Purchase, which he talks about. And he was a nerd, you know. And he was crucially also president at a time when it all kind of blurs together, you know, like those post-Washington presidents, that whole Virginia dynasty era. It was just a bunch of guys in wigs, whereas Lincoln sort of stands there amongst all of the sort of mediocrities and forgotten presidents of the latter half of the 19th century as, you know, this titanic figure who saved the country. So I think that it probably is a pretty significant difference in attendance, as well it should be. Also, he did not invent the dumbwaiter. He lies. He's lying to Lisa Simpson.
You know, I also think the Lincoln Memorial is more compelling to the average American because it's just a guy who's sitting down.
The other thing. It's just a stunning piece of architecture, although I do agree with Lewis Mumford that it's kind of the actual design of the Lincoln Memorial really has much less to do with Lincoln than it does to do with the Spanish-American War, which was happening at the same time they built it, because it really isn't about Lincoln so much as it's about America like finally coming into its own as a nation of destiny and as an imperial power with all the Greek shit and the Roman columns and stuff.
Well, Walt Disney saw that and he thought, you've seen Lincoln sit. What if he eventually stood up? And that is an exhibit at Walt Disneyland.
History came alive there. This time in Jefferson knowledge or what America thought of them, this joke was like, you forget all the things Jefferson did. Well, us comedy nerds will remind you with this joke here. I feel like the aughts, Jefferson's name was like mud, or just like the more, now we know way more. I mean, what's not mentioned here is slavery, which is what my first thought is with Jefferson these days, of just the whole Sally Hemings of it all. Like that really changed it. And also, like, I really, there's a lot of things I don't like in Hamilton, but one thing I don't, and the performer who plays Thomas Jefferson is a great performer, at least in the original cast I'm talking about, but that he shows up and he's just like, yep, I'm the fun guy, I'm crazy, hey Sally Hemings. I was like, this is a weird way to write Thomas Jefferson with what we have informationally on him. I don't know,
especially since, as I said, he was a nerd. He was a persnickety dork. I think people have diagnosed him on the spectrum across the mist of history. He was not a party dude. I mean, he partied, but kind of in the sweaty fashion of nerds throughout history.
He couldn't hold a candle to Ben Franklin in the party department.
Oh no, nobody would know. Ben Franklin was the real party founder. Everyone knows that.
Apparently, dumbwaiter invented by George Cannon, but Jefferson just had them in the White House in Monticello, so a lot of people assumed he invented it. I think that's the story behind it.
Also, apparently, there's some confusion that what he referred to and what was at the time referred to as a dumbwaiter is actually a lazy Susan.
Oh, okay.
Which also sometimes gets attributed to having been invented by Jefferson.
I remember I was always fascinated by Lazy Susans. There's a whole Simpsons comic strip in Simpsons Illustrated. The concept was the Simpsons get a Lazy Susan. What happens then? Well, speaking of comic strips, so after this bit of Jefferson, this is when the blinders are off Lisa. She sees Washington for what it is, an editorial cartoon from the 1800s by Thomas Nast. I mean, I love the drawing of the pigs eating out of a trough of money and wiping their mouth with the American flag. Like, that's such a great drawing, as is the literal fat cat scratching each other's back. From the script, they cut out one extra cartoon joke, which is there's a man labeled John Q. Taxpayer being whipped while pulling a cart that has a donkey and elephant riding in it. So that's I wish they'd have kept that one. Why not go all the way with these like incredibly like crass obvious metaphors? Like, go all the way with it. But yes, Lisa becomes a cynical teen, which I think like George Meyer did this again in Separate Vocations. Like, it's a very similar but they go even farther with it in that, where when Lisa finds out she can't be a jazz saxophonist, she just gives up on life and just becomes, a great sullen teen. And this is pretty much a similar one for her. I just love she's got to tell the world, like, how many of us learned like, actually Thanksgiving isn't about this, Mom and Dad. You have to give that speech like it's a rite of passage for a dumb teen to tell your parents this like they've never heard it before. We do a quick bit of Bart getting a massage from an adult man, which I'm not into that so much now.
This is some Mr. Smith territory.
Yes, yeah, but he should take advantage of Reading Digest. Get as many dollars out of that as you can. Which and Homer is happy to indulge in that as well, and he's even smoking cigars. And so after that, one last joke about hotels. We get a character the script calls a man much like Mark Russell.
Okay,
that's literally in the script.
I was wondering what his parody name was because they don't say it on this.
No, but I love this. Like, my mom had to explain this character to me, but
and looking at the amount of times he was parodied, I appreciate just the contempt TV comedy writers had for this man. And one thing they don't really get in this parody is whenever you see him, and I looked up clips of Mark Russell, the audience is losing their goddamn minds.
They love it. They can't get it up.
It's like watching the Beatles' first performance or something. People are screaming in the aisles.
Let's hear about the deficit rag.
The deficit rag, oh yeah, the deficit rag. Those budget gaps can be a 12-digit drag. I'm telling you, that's the deficit. They really made a mess of it. That's the deficit rag. Thank you.
Oh, this guy is awful.
I know, honey, but just sit still.
Oh, and you know what? Harry Shearer, we'll never talk to him on this show because he hates The Simpsons, but the things he writes, the political parodies he writes, are on this level or worse. Yes. I mean, look up my favorite example, is his Peach Boys parody, Waterboarding USA.
Yes.
It's real bad. He's a real Mark Russell.
Yeah, but that's edgy because it's about torture, so that makes it different. It's like, if it's about the deficit, that's corny, but if it's about torturing people, then that's like incisive satire. Like, no, I'm sorry, you're doing it. It's all jib jab to me. There's no honor here. There's nothing of honor found here.
I guess I'll give the only thing I'd give Shearer credit for on that is that I think he cares about something more important. America's torture program and ending it is more important than deficit pearl clutching, I'd say. But other than that, the same level of skill, I'd say. Yeah.
And I don't want to break any hearts out there, but Mark Russell, he first retired in 2010, but then he came back in 2016 for a final performance, I think possibly because of Trump, but you can still see videos of him just like in non-performance spaces doing songs about Trump. And what they really nail about him is just the showboatiness of him, but they didn't get his like Star-Spangled Piano.
Oh,
they missed that little detail.
I missed that. That's
my favorite Mark Russell parody is actually from News Radio when Bill Mitchell decides that he wants to become a Mark Russell style musical parodyist, and I just remember him with the piano like in the break room going, "Twinkle twinkle Kenneth Star, special whitewater prosecutor."
Yes. Oh God, that they could just open. And yeah, I remember the elevator doors opening, and he's just like, dun, dun, dun. They're hitting every. Oh, that's one of the best. God damn, that's so good. Yeah.
And I was looking up information on Mark Russell, and it makes me so mad that his hero is Tom Lehrer. I hope Tom Lehrer spit on him. He's still alive, by the way. Tom Lehrer is so great.
He wrote still alive, amazingly.
He's still alive. He wrote like 20 amazing political parody songs in 1968, and that's it. And he went back to teaching math.
Man, I didn't know who Mark Russell was. I learned about him in the 96 election, which also is where, Bob, you dug up another truly great Mark Russell parody here from SNL at the time.
It's real good.
I'll play a quick bit of it here.
According to the latest polls, President Clinton leads Bob Dole of Kansas by 16 percentage points. It's brought to mind this little check. Mine eyes have seen the latest polls. Dole's 16 points behind.
The Wall Street Journal says the genius of Mark Russell is that he takes songs we all know and changes the words from what they regularly are and puts in things about politics that are real funny.
I understand Ross Perot wasn't allowed in the televised debate. Here's a little song about all that. Ross Perot, Ross Perot, Ross Perot, Ross Perot.
That's it.
That's it.
I love it. So, I mean, Matt, you're an SNL scholar. This is a rancid year for the show, but Mark McKinney was really trying, I think.
Hired a bunch of ringers.
Yeah.
Like Mark McKeon and Mark McKinney,
Yeah, when Garofalo and Chris Elliott. But
Chris Elliott, yeah.
But that Mark Russell thing, like the Mark McKinney's version of it is he's so self-satisfied and just tickled with everything he's doing. Like, that's so good.
It's like SNL puts some stuff on YouTube that's on YouTube. You have to see the audience just losing their minds at all of this, and just the effusive praise the Will Ferrell announcer is giving with all these quotes. It's real good. It's only like a 3-minute sketch. It's perfect.
See, and that's, I'm not saying I don't see this in no comedy today, but at the very least, I wish I like that in the 90s, there were comedy writers who, their offense that this was not political, it's that it was so hack. They had to like mock how awful Mark Russell was at being a performer and just how bad he was. Like, I miss that meanness. Nobody's that mean anymore. I feel like everybody now just even has the thought of like, well, they worked hard, you can't... I don't want to make fun of this song from Hamilton that I don't think is very good. He worked really hard on it. Other people like it. Like, they just say to have jokes that Mark Russell is a talentless hack. Like, I miss those days. Yeah. I was thinking of this too. I was watching that I feel like it was the last great movie the Wet Hot American Summer Troupe dudes did, called like They Came Together, where it's just like incredibly cruel and mean about every rom-com cliche. I feel like ever since that, all the people who star in that now are just like, why are we being mean to rom-coms?
Yeah,
people like
I'm gonna have to be in these Hallmark movies at some point, says Amy Poehler.
I feel like it's the last time Amy Poehler had anything with fangs in it, even a little bit. But anyway, having Bart just say out loud, "This guy's awful,"
and Marge agrees.
She's
like, "I know, honey,
but please, it'll be over sooner if you don't complain about it."
Also, guys, Capital Steps, they put the mock in democracy, by the way, in case you forgot. They're out of business too.
Oh, man.
God damn it.
But they say
even anymore.
Their webpage says they might come back for the presidency of Chelsea Clinton. I'm not making this up. That's their promise.
God. Barf. I think that might not actually happen. I think there was a time when I feared the political aspirations of Chelsea, but she is just so unlikable that I don't think they could even hand her a representative.
No, just show pictures of the wedding and we can see who's there.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess though too, these deficit rag, all these songs, they really do show like what the 90s politics were about, of just like being worried about boring, like this is post-Soviet Union stuff, right, Matt? Like they just constantly obsessed with the deficit or the trading gap or budget gap or all this shit. Yeah, it's
searching for an enemy.
And Clinton and this deficit pearl clutching, Clinton went straight into that in his time. Like he picked up the baton from Bush and went straight away with it.
And he actually did it. They balanced the budget, and then Bush W got in and was like, yeah, no more of that. Get out of there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dick Cheney said, Reagan proved deficits don't matter. Oh, you actually believe that stuff, you fucking idiot?
Well, fortunately, no Democrat politician would fall for that deficit hawkishness ever again.
Never.
So yes, we get a list of all the people who are the judges for this. Wilson Defarge is a great name for a perennial third party candidate.
He's a real Lyndon LaRouche.
I think that's what they're doing. Yeah.
I mean, we see Rowena one more time.
Yes.
She's back for the grade school talent show competition in Lisa's Pony. Was that it?
No, for the Miss America pageant.
Okay.
Thing. Yeah, though I think they miscolor her in this one because her character in her second appearance and only other on-screen appearance, she's African American in that.
That's right.
I think they miscolored her as yellow in this one. And that Brad Fletcher guy, he grew up to be Mayor Pete, I think. That's who. He's actually no. Brad Fletcher has more passion than Mayor Pete has in his entire body in one finger. Yeah, and also Chilton Gaines. What a great name for a wealthy gadabout. But
I think that Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein, they both grew up in the DC area. I think Josh Weinstein was a page.
Oh, really?
As like a teenage boy.
Oh, right. Yeah,
and he said like Bob Dole was very nice to him the one time they met.
I remember that. Yeah. Which that's what he thought. And later, though, he wrote a joke where Bob Dole and Bill Clinton suffocate in outer space. Like you can never do that. I know it's so cliche to say you can never do that joke now, but I feel like the Simpsons would not do a joke now where both presidential candidates suffocate to death, nude in outer space. But yeah, as is pointed out on the commentary, the Reader's Digest does something which no one would do, which is let Lisa read a different essay than the one that was submitted. Like, no, they'd cut her mind.
You didn't get here. You got here for the roots of democracy, lady. What do you think you're doing?
If you don't want to read that essay, then you're disqualified. Like the end. Like, yeah, Faith Crowley is going to get fired for letting Lisa give this speech here. But yes, Lisa's new essay is not so crowd pleasing.
Lisa Simpson will now read her essay.
I would like to read a different essay, if I may.
Okay.
The city of Washington was built on a stagnant swamp some 200 years ago, and very little has changed. It stank then, and it stinks now. Only today it is the fetid stench of corruption that hangs in the air.
Ooh, ruckus.
And who did I see taking a bribe but the Honorable Bob Arnold? Don't worry, Congressman. I'm sure you can buy all the votes you need with your dirty money. And this will be one nation under the dollar with liberty and justice for none.
Senator, there's a problem at the essay contest.
Please, son, I'm very busy.
A little girl is losing faith in democracy.
Good Lord.
And yeah, I took this all as being sincere as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Probably until I saw this again in my 20s when I got the DVDs. Like, oh, they were being sarcastic.
Yes, this would never, ever happen, ever. In 91, they were saying this would never happen. In 2021, there wouldn't even be an investigation. Like, it just wouldn't happen.
It's 6 years later on Lisa the Iconoclast. She's on stage about to give the truth about Jebediah. There's a sniper who takes a shot at her.
Yes.
So
that's true. They would have killed her right there and then revealed the... Yeah, I mean, the reaction shots from Ted Kennedy in the audience are also great. Right? It's like there's just something about seeing like the giant head Ted Kennedy drawing. It gives me a chuckle. Yeah, her entire speech of like this, I feel like that's just what George Meyer felt or did feel one time in his youth. And that Lisa like gets to say, I love that on TV, Lisa gets to say like, America stinks. Like, that's just great. But this ending is an incredible like work of parody and satire that goes like, I would bet if they said, oh, that Lisa is allowed to be disappointed, like that Fox would have said, no, you can't just have Lisa be depressed and think like, oh yeah, America's a scam, like it's all fake, it's all bribery and backroom deals. She can't think that. So in their attempt to make it good for Lisa again and to restore her faith in America, they have to go so far in the opposite direction of a thing that would never ever happen, that within 2 hours he is arrested, expelled from the Senate and put in jail and finds Christ. That happens in less than 2 hours to
Chuck Colson reference there.
Oh, really? Okay.
I was reading on the wiki.
He was one of the White House officials who went to prison for Watergate, and he famously became born again there and came out and became a evangelist among political people.
So that was the scam he ran then. Okay. That's my, yeah, well, okay, that's good to know that that's his, the scam they're making fun of there. It moving so fast is so funny. Like in the script, it doesn't go that fast. I think they even later were like, no, make it so, give the timestamps to show that like 5 minutes pass in between each scene here.
It's similar to the end of Mr. Smith because, I mean, the end of the movie is, he's got to filibuster for a long time. That's not fun to watch. You're cutting between a lot of different things as time passes. And I say the only reason to watch the movie is to watch the scene towards the end where, so he's got this like army of children back in his hometown because he's like a youth leader or whatever. They're getting out the word about Jeff Smith. They're driving this car down the street. Agents from the political machine that are fighting Jeff Smith just ram them off the road. Sharp cut to this woman on the phone. Children are getting hurt. Tell him to stop right now. So you see just basically the murder of 6 children on the screen. Unexpected in a Frank Capra movie.
Yes.
And then, I mean, that movie does, and this episode, I think, works mostly as a parody. I mean, its relationship to Mr. Smith is a parody of the ending, because the ending of Mr. Smith is he finally, exhausted from his filibustering, collapses and is defeated. But the evil senator who was opposing him was so moved by the content of the speech that he botches a suicide and then confesses everything to the press.
Yeah.
That level of just sort of cartoonish denial of reality is what they're going for at the end of the episode here.
It made me think that in both Wonderful Life and Mr. Smith, attempted suicide saves the day.
It's true. Capper was working through some stuff. Yeah, that's. I love at that ending bit too. The satisfied look on the guy, like watching him when he's like after he passes out, like he's like rocking back and forth, satisfied. Like that's such a great evil guy vision too. When I think of like evil, smug, satisfied people, I think of that guy shaking back and forth in his seat. Also, the guy falls for drilling for oil in Mount Rushmore. Like that's such a great, just like Teddy Who, like what a great line. And yes, also another great like bit of parody that like, oh yeah, well, the exchange of HW with some visiting African dignitary.
I want to say it's Desmond Tutu, the recently departed, just based on how he's dressed and his glasses. Although it could be anybody, but I think that's what they were going for.
I think you're right. Yeah. It just is like your bosses.
Tutu was very hot in the early '90s. Apartheid was ending.
And actually, Lisa's even though it's ending, Lisa still has up her End Apartheid Now poster in her bedroom in this episode too. But yeah, just like 250 million of them. Like as a little kid, I just took that as like that's what the president thinks. He's that satisfied doing the will of the voters. I love America. Like the parody completely missed me.
And all this happens. I wrote down the times. Bob Arnold is arrested at 1:19, and at 3:39 p.m. Trong Van Dinh is giving his final speech.
That's great. Lisa is then shocked to learn about this.
Okay, this should make my bosses very happy.
Your bosses?
Yep. All 250 million of them.
When my family arrived in this country 4 months ago, we spoke no English and had no money in our pockets. Today, we own a nationwide chain of wheel balancing centers. Where else but in America, or possibly Canada, could our family find such opportunity? That's why, whenever I see the stars and stripes, I'll always be reminded of that wonderful word, flag.
There will be a brief recess while the judges tabulate their votes.
Lisa, what's gotten into you?
Yeah, your other speech was a little more crowd-pleasing.
I'm sorry, Dad. I couldn't think of a nice way to say America stinks.
Extra, extra, feds, nab, rotten rat.
Give me one of those.
Imprisoned congressman becomes born-again Christian.
I can't believe it. The system works.
Yeah.
Lisa shouldn't believe that. That's the joke. But yeah.
My favorite joke this time around, like such a subtle joke, is when Trong is saying, whenever I see the stars and stripes, I'll think of that wonderful word, flag. You think he's going to say opportunity or freedom or, I don't know, plenty or whatever American values you want to ascribe to that. He's like, whenever I'm looking at stars and stripes, I think of flag because I'm looking at a flag.
Yes,
There's like no sentiment behind it. It's just very literal.
That is a great line. And then also his, common sense leaks through too. There's like, where else but in America or possibly Canada? Like, just he has to be like, yeah, I'd have this opportunity in Canada too. America's not that special. Like even in his fiercely pro-American essay. I mean, too, I do wonder, like, when he says they came to America with no money in their pockets, like, that's quite a quick thing to have within 4 months a nationwide chain of wheel balancing centers. Like, where that initial angel investment come from? That's my question on Trong's family. But yeah, like I said,
if his family was like Arvin, like South Vietnamese like military officers, probably Golden Triangle heroin would be
all that stuff, the stuff that was in that the Denzel Washington American Gangster movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, like I said, I think it's an example to a parody of how a lot of politicians, particularly conservative institutions, brandish Asian Americans like Trong as the model minority used to attack other minorities. Like that's another, like in his opportunity speech is a perfect one they'd give.
His speech is called USA A-OK.
Yes, great line. Yes, also, very quickly, let's hear about that trading gap shuffle.
The trading gap shuffle, we're in a heap of trouble doing the trading gap shuffle, yes sir!
You already sing this song.
No, that was about the budget gap. This is the trading gap.
Oh, that's great.
Just like that SNL parody, he doesn't really explain what the term is. It's just like, yeah, we're doing it. We're doing the dance.
Yep, it's happening.
It's big trouble.
Yes. I think again in the SNL one, just that he says like I saw that Bob Dole was 16 points behind Bill Clinton. It made me think of this, and he just repeats the thing he just said. Like God. And I also, in the animation, the way he like dances back off stage, like that's so great too.
Yeah,
like, he's just
more showboating.
So yes, we get a list of all of them. Let's hear the Lisa loses ending. Has happened so many times to poor old Lisa.
Will the winning essay be Bubble On, Oh Melting Pot, Lift High Your Lamp, Green Lady, USA A-OK, or Cesspool on the Potomac?
Cesspool, 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 cesspool.
And now the winner is USA A-OK by Trong Van Din.
Miss Crawley, thank you for this oversized novelty check. I would like to share this honor with all of my fellow essayists, particularly the courageous Lisa Simpson, whose inflammatory rhetoric reminded us that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance.
Give her the check! It was serious.
Say, let me tell you about Lisa S. She's that little 8-year-old McGregor S. She caught a crook and really made him pay. She did it all in just one day. That's what I would call being on the ball.
Bart! Lise, you taught me to stand up for what I believe in.
And I assume those are all written by Jeff Martin, who was writing every song in this era.
I think so. Yeah. So Mark Russell is knocked unconscious on stage. Like he doesn't get up. You don't hear him after that thing hits him after the slingshot hits him in the head.
Hey, muckraker-s is a good invented word.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
It's almost too clever for him. But yeah, I mean also like Bubble On, Oh Melting Pot, Lift Higher Lamp, Free Lady. Like what great titles. I love that. And also, you know what? I'm with Homer. You know, Trong, as he already set up, his family's very rich. They don't need that money. Like Lisa, that would be life-changing for Lisa.
Just give it to Lisa.
Everyone needs their wheels balanced.
Yeah. There's one last big change from the script. The biggest change from the script from that guy, 3002's great script analysis Twitter thread. In the ending, this final song by Mark Russell, not there. It actually is Lisa loses. They then cut to them flying home. And on the airplane flight back, an eagle flies by the window and winks at Lisa.
Oh, okay.
And I think
I like that.
Yeah, I think I know why that was cut too, because I bet it was even just included. Matt, you might not know this, but Matt Groening had a lot of like little things that were like the Groening rules. You can't do this on the show thing. And especially after, if you remember in War of the Simpsons, when Homer and Marge are fighting over the catfish winks at the camera. Matt Groening hated that more than anything. Like he hated it. He doesn't like animals doing human things. And so this script would have been written right after that reaction from Groening. I feel like they included it to like troll Groening, and then Groening cut it.
It feels like it was meant to wind him up at a table read. Like, let's see what it'll say if you put this in the script.
There's certainly a little antagonism with Groening, I think, with that inclusion. I mean, it's much funnier. Give us a third song by the Mark Russell guy,
and then kill him.
Yes, brain him in the head. Yes. I really love that episode. Like just as a parody of Reader's Digest, as a parody of the entire essay opinion columnist like machinery and every cliche there ever, and it shows you in 31 years since, all those cliches are just reused by every single opinion writer and columnist to this day. Yeah,
I totally agree with you, Henry. And I mean, season 3 has truly begun, production season 3, and this is when I've been waiting for this to revisit this production season, because it just gets so much sharper and funnier, and the characters grow and the animation gets better. So I'm very excited to be doing this right now, and this is a great way to kick it off. Matt, any final thoughts on this one?
Is somebody keeping an eye on the trading gap? I just remembered it, and I'm thinking we haven't heard about the trading gap in a while, otherwise known as the trade deficit. So, somebody better be looking after that, because I know I haven't been.
We're gonna hear like they have to just kind of pan for gold as to what's going, right in America. It's like this has risen by 2%. I imagine that will be like one item on a fact sheet.
Oh yeah, it'll be in one of those like list responses of things that like when in an interview Kamala Harris is told like, hey, you're not doing anything, and she's like, actually we closed the trading gap by 4% last quarter.
There was a great thing last year, either for Memorial Day or 4th of July. It's like, we're saving you money at the grocery store, and it's like literally a cent off of potato chips this year, or like 10 cents per pound of butter or something like that. So they're really looking for the silver lining.
Yeah, good times. Boy, that's that second Trump term's not going to be fun.
No, not looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's too bad. Anyway, but anyway, Matt, thank you so much for coming on again for this for The Simpsons this week.
Thank you very much for having me. Had a great time.
And this goes live on the 23rd, so at this point of March. So you'll be just coming off of your southern tour. But if you're listening to this on the Patreon tomorrow on the 24th, you guys should be in New Orleans.
Yes. God willing. Yes, we can sing the song that got New Orleans pissed off at The Simpsons there.
Oh man, that'd be great. I think your perfect New Orleans accent, I think, will be very appreciated there.
Yeah, they're gonna love it down there.
You can try it out.
Not gonna get beaten up at all. Not gonna happen.
You can try it out in every tacky overpriced souvenir store.
And everybody should follow Matt at Cushbomb on Twitter. A few better follows on Twitter out there. So, but
thank you guys.
No, thank you, Matt, so much. We always love having you on. Thank you so much for giving us all your time for The Simpsons.
Of course. Anything for you guys and for The Simpsons.
So thanks again to Matt Christman for being on the show. Please check out Chapo Trap House, his podcast, of course, and follow him on Twitter as Cushbomb. And as for us, if you want to check out more of what we do and get all these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up there for $5 a month to get just that, but also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That includes all of our limited miniseries episodes we've done to date, over 100 episodes. But if you're a $5 and up patron, you will get monthly episodes of both Talk King of the Hill and Talking Futurama, or King of the Hill and Futurama podcast every month, coming to you throughout the year. And there's so much more waiting for you behind that paywall. Episodes about The Critic and Mission Hill and so many more other things. But also there is a $10 level as well. When you sign up for $10 a month, you get all the $5 stuff, of course, but also access to one mega long podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob, you're talking about the What a Cartoon Movie podcast, where me and Bob go through an animated feature film super in depth, just like we do The Simpsons. It is once a month only for our $10 and up subscribers. Last month, we covered South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, chosen by a large majority of our patrons. The month before that, we talked about The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, and I bet this month we have another great one coming to you. Over 200 hours, 3 years worth of What a Cartoon Movies at your disposal at that $10 level, in addition to all the $5 things Bob just mentioned. If you go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, you can check out all of the great stuff you get for your money.
So I'm one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast, by the way, is Retronauts. It's a classic gaming podcast all about old video games. Find that wherever you find podcasts, or go to patreon.com/Retronauts. Sign up there for 2 full-length bonus episodes every month. And Henry, how about you?
You can follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. I'm always tweeting up a storm there. Follow me to keep up to date. And when you're on Twitter, please also follow the official Twitter account of this podcast at Talk Simpsons Pod. At Talk Simpsons Pod will keep you up to date on all the things going on in our podcast, whether on the free feed or on Patreon. And also, you know what? You should visit Talking Simpsons Podcast.